Oh my God, y'all saw that, right? Oh, I'm dead.
Sorry.
He's okay. He's okay.
I'm running but yeah, my week's been interesting.
Okay. He's okay.
Same.
Where did the fucking just? Okay, there it is.
All right.
Oh.
I'm sitting here playing with my control with my keyboard again.
I'm gonna take a picture because I don't think I've shown you guys the desk and everything.
You posted pictures of it.
I posted it on Twitter, I guess. Yeah, we got the 4th monitor up.
Nice.
I feel a little ridiculous with 4 monitors, to be honest, but it's also beautiful at the same time.
Yeah. All right.
14 months. Dang, Dolan.
What's 14 months?
I think he's been is it a sub? Yeah, a sub for 14 months.
Yeah. Because his badge has changed.
1 year subscriber, 3 month subscriber. You guys are awesome. You know that?
Yeah. That is a true statement. I will try. I'm going to just before show, I will make the promise. I will try my best not to get sucked into the rabbit hole of reminiscing on this. But to be fair, this is like Cyberpunk RPGs are among probably my favorite because growing up with RPGs and stuff like that, Cyberpunk was definitely one of the big themes. So it's really hard to, Z, exactly. That's why I kind of hesitated when I said it, to be fair. All right. I'm also trying to, the other thing is like, I really want to give it I really want to do justice to the genre, and the genre is it seriously is an amazing genre.
It's a really deep topic.
It's even also really
there's 30 books.
Yeah.
There's 30 books for Cyberpunk just alone.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, you're talking Cyberpunk, the actual title Cyberpunk. I mean, like the genre itself. I mean, Jesus Christ, Neuromancer, and then like the artists alone or the authors alone for the subgenre of Cyberpunk is just, I mean, Blade Runner. Anyone?
Right.
That alone. I mean, Philip K. Dick alone I think is like one of my favorite authors. Altered Carbon, it's just, I'm trying to make sure related genres. That's what I wanted. Okay. Biopunk. Trying to get all the big ones.
Deus Ex,
yeah.
Steampunk, that was the other one.
Oh gosh. There's a freaking band that I used to really like that was like a steampunk band. Oh god. This is back in college, so my brain is not going to keep up with me at the moment.
Well, Taylor was asking about like the different blank punk genres and like what our thoughts were. And so I was just trying to
Abney Park. That's the band.
Which one?
Abney Park.
That sounds really familiar.
You might know them. You might not. Let me see if I can find their most famous song, aka their song that I know. It's gonna, I found it. Of course, I'm gonna give it to you via Spotify link. Do you want it on YouTube instead?
If you just message me the name and I can look it up.
It's just called Airship Pirate.
Airship. God, man, that sounds really familiar.
I found them randomly when I was in college. I don't remember how or why, or I don't know. I don't remember, but one of the really cool things when we went to Florida, not this year, but the year before, Julie and I went and spent time in Orlando, and we went to why am I blanking on the name? Universal Studios. There we go. And next to Universal Studios, there is a steampunk chocolatier place. And it was really cool. Like, we just went inside. We didn't eat
and that was
anything.
where was that?
Next to Universal Studios. Like outside. It's not in Universal.
Is that the one in Florida?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I swear that I might have been there. Like, how old is that place? Is it still there?
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
it was 2 years ago when we went.
Steampunk chocolate place is like a very unique thing, and I think that I might have, like, as a kid, we might have been. I don't know how, but
I don't know how old it is, but it was kind of neat. It's before you go in the gates for Universal, and that is the main Universal Studios or whatever, not the theme park, not the Island of Adventure, but the other one. And so it was interesting to see that. We almost got something, but we were so exhausted from the actual theme park at that point that we just kind of skipped it, because the normal theme park is quite...
Yeah. That little guy has started realizing Disney World exists, and it's like,
oh no.
Well, I mean, it's not too bad. It's just it's like having been, like, growing up, I've been multiple times, and it's just one of those things that my family, we always just had multiple times going to things like that, and all, like, legitimately all I remember from that is just the sense of sheer exhaustion. Like, I don't even remember enjoyment. It's just the sense of overloaded and exhaustion.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how do you want to...
My dad had a brilliant way of pacifying us kids when it came to Disney World. In Southwest Kansas, there is a booster station that does... what are they called? It pushes natural gas out to the East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing is it is off the highway just enough to where unsuspecting children would think, oh, this is really pretty. This might be like Disney World. So my dad made that my Disney World for a real long time. That's I was convinced. I was absolutely, totally convinced that I was seeing Disney World.
That's hey, you know what? That's pretty fucking awesome on his part.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, if no one's the wiser, who does it hurt?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I found out when I was probably 8 or 9, finally, that it was not Disney World. But until then, I was thoroughly convinced. Oh, Blindwell. I'm so glad people finally know how to run Blindwell. I wish they would learn public events, to be honest, but...
Beard would be proud of me. I'm carving my way through the rest of the Doom campaign. Oh my god, the Testament of the Slayers, or whatever. Whoever did that voice acting, holy shit. It's so good.
Really good. Do we not have show notes this week?
We do. They're in the extra
they're
lore.
yeah, sorry. I keep
They're in
them
the extra lore
separate.
folder because Blue keeps them there and forgets to move them.
I'm OCD about stuff. I can move them into I can move them into the main folder. I think.
It's okay.
Were you able to find it, Beard, or do you want me to move it to the main folder?
Oh. Yeah, I got it.
Okay. Yeah.
Cedar Point.
Yeah, I'm not doing that one.
Yeah. Where's Cedar Point at, Z? Ohio? Seattle. Yeah. Bull crap, you don't have anything, Fox. Seattle's freaking awesome. That was actually one of the places we considered moving. We were really looking into moving to Seattle. It's all the roller coasters. I enjoyed Seattle at least.
I'm not going down that rabbit hole because that's
no for theme parks.
Extremely different.
I don't mind theme parks. It's just not my favorite thing.
Same.
Like Julie and I literally went to Pike Place Marketplace probably 4 or 5 days in a row while we were there, just to like hang out and buy groceries.
Pike's Place has some really awesome places, though.
Also, the comic book store, we found the Buffy the Vampire Slayer musical script. Oh my god.
Oh no, not Buffy. I was gonna say, speaking of that, sorry, that was a weird segue. The Sabrina readaptation.
The reboot?
Or
whatever.
On Netflix. Oh my god, it looks amazing. Because they're going off the comics of...
Are they?
The Creepy Tales from Sabrina.
Ah.
Which is gonna be... if you were not a fan of... Like, one of the best summaries of this is, like... If you're a fan of the, whatever the happy-go-lucky bullshit show was, that was with the robocentric cat or whatever, Salem. Like, Salem, yeah, Salem was awesome. That was, like, the only part of the show that I could stomach. But, like, if you weren't a fan of that show, you're probably going to absolutely love that Netflix's remake of it.
Well, isn't Melissa Joan Hart helping direct it?
I wouldn't be surprised.
I thought she was actually like directing the thing.
Honestly, I don't know who's directing it to be. Let's see. Sabrina, but like effing hell, whoever's the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. That's what it is. But like the main character is like, I don't know, she so far has been amazing. But yeah, it was a comic book from Archie Horror, which was like a more mature take of like all of the Archie type series, which is where I think Kiernan Shipka is Sabrina. If I remember, actually, I think that the Riverdale remake, which I have not sat down and watched, but I think that was also from the same publisher.
Okay.
Producer, program creator, the executive producer is Greg Berlanti. I'm trying to see if there's... Come on. Seriously? There. Nope, that's not it. Here we go. Written by Roberto Sacrasa. Inspired by the appearances. Yeah. Afterlife with Archie. I forgot about that one. That's a...
Wait, which is the most violent city? What?
St. Louis.
Move from... Is it really?
No, sorry.
Moved from the most violent city to the second most violent city.
St. Louis is up there.
You're in New Mexico, so is that Albuquerque? Because I've been to Albuquerque,
Detroit?
and that's
Are
a
you talking
pretty
Detroit?
damn.
Yeah, okay.
That's a damn
Yeah,
really
Detroit.
rough.
Detroit
Yeah,
is the first.
Okay.
And
And
Albuquerque,
I
I
don't.
think
I do
Albuquerque
not
is
doubt
the
it.
second.
There's a lot of gang violence, if I remember correctly, because Julie and I, we've done a few road trips through there because she has a friend that we stay with. Oh man, I'm out of primary ammo. That's weird. There we go. But yeah, the Albuquerque is a really kind of rough looking town. For sure. I agree with that.
I don't see Melissa, but Lee Tolan Krieger is directing the pilot, which was written by Roberto Sacasa. Greg Berlanti, Sarah I'm going to butcher that name, Schrichter, and John Goldwater.
Schrichter.
Schrichter. And then
I don't know. I'm just making up names.
John Goldwater,
what you're kind of saying.
are executive producers.
They've
already ordered 2 seasons.
Nice.
Wow, nice.
I didn't realize there was as much of a fan base still for Sabrina.
I think they're riding the success of Riverdale, to be honest, because Riverdale is in this. I want to say that Riverdale is in the same Archie horror universe as this. Yeah, inspired. Okay, Sabrina. Yeah, I think it's a combination of them writing the success of Riverdale and then also just the like fond memories that a lot of people have of that series. All right, what am I doing?
Of the cat. You about said of the cat.
Of the cat, yeah. I mean, to be honest, that's the only thing that we all care about.
Kitty. Speaking of kitties, where are all the fucking cats in the game?
Low lines. Use low lines.
He doesn't have them all yet. Like, there's still some missing.
Oh, well, I haven't played Destiny in like 2 weeks, so when I was on there, he had like first like 4 or 5 or whatever, so.
Yeah, because I think they're still missing the last couple. Because there's supposed to be 8, and I think they still only have like 5.
Well, but have all 8 been found? Like, have they actually found all of them?
No, that's what I'm saying. Is like we're still missing the locations of some of them. Like Mara has a cat behind her.
Yes, I remember someone saying that.
But it doesn't do anything, which makes me real sad.
Oh, it doesn't have you don't have an option to offer? I mean, because there's a shit ton of cats just lying around that don't have anything you can do.
Right.
It's curious why one of them is with Mara then. I wonder if those aren't her eyes of some kind.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Mara having her own private army of cat eyes.
I mean, Aldrin has crows.
That's true. Ooh. That would certainly be interesting.
All right.
So, Blue.
Yes.
I'm like 2 entries away with being done with the
Yay.
Drifter's Gambit.
Yeah. What do you think?
Now that I am reading it and digest instead of having it read to me that way, very different. Because I thought that it was going to be... I didn't pick up on some of the stuff you were talking about with Shaxx, and now I'm like sitting here reading it. I'm like,
oh yeah, like where it's like,
shit.
Yeah, you're talking to Shaxx, like you're not talking.
Renegade is,
yeah,
Renegade's talking to Shaxx. He's not talking to us, which means that we're still part of the problem, which is not good.
Yeah.
Yep.
That, and I'm also waiting for you to get through the ghost stories.
Oh my god. The ghost stories, I'm recording those right now.
Yeah.
And
I continue
especially
about this one called Pulled Pork. And
Pulled Pork.
Pulled
Pork. Okay, I'm just fair warning, chat. Pulled Pork is fucking hilarious. Like,
yes.
Oh my god, I fucking love that one. Just simply because the the attitude of the Guardian is especially the ending of it is just great.
Sagira in the card with Ikora's ghost of Ficus or
that's the oh fuck. It's
that's like the third or fourth card or whatnot.
compliments.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
And
I just recorded that. That was so much fun.
the philosophical theory that Aphilius has is really cool. I really like that. But I think also the cool thing there is that the thing that is underlying through all of the ghost stories entries is that they are just as in the dark as we are as far as what's going on certain things. Like they have their own theories and theologies and philosophies and stuff like that. It's really which is actually really kind of, it's frustrating, but it's also really cool at the same time.
Which, of course, again ties back to what I said about the speaker, and how ghosts seem to have no damn idea if the speaker actually knew anything of what was going on.
And that actually gets called out with pressure.
Yes,
Pressure.
it does.
Repressure. Pressure is a conversation. Oh God, I'm serious. I'm waiting for you guys you to get done with it, because there's a lot of that gets called out from like behind the scenes as far as like what the speaker was doing, and it's implied really more than anything, but like it also makes perfect sense given the context of the warlords. Like basically the speaker was instructing the ghost on how to find guardians, and like he was urging them patience instead of like just going out and resurrecting the first thing that they found. Because
some of them end up being bad.
Of Windmills and Cranes is an example. Ghost Hunter is another. Cyril is creepy as fuck.
Cyril is freaking awesome. I'm excited to learn more about Cyril.
I want to see, if I ever get a cutscene, it's like one of the cutscenes that I would love to see is Micah and Cyril going at it. Because Micah is like the den mother of the ghost, and he like basically was like point blank, if I see this guy, I'm fucking ending him. Like, it's so funny.
How many are there?
23.
Are there 23? Yeah, there's a good, but the big ones, like there's a number of like really, really emotional ones. Into the Fray is amazing. What was the other one?
There's some really good ones. There's some real sad ones though too.
But the Confession of Hope. So there's 2 Confession of Hopes. And I'm Beard, these are the ones that I'm really curious what like a lot of the heavy hitters in the lore community think on these 2, because I'm almost dead certain that is the explanation of Shin. Like the whole problem that everyone has about Shin being able to harness the guardian powers and never being resurrected in the Grim. Confession of Hope, I think, just flat out answers the problem. Actually, Taylor actually just submitted a article for the website that I need to finish reading up, but in publishing, dealing with that exact thing as well. But
nice.
Yeah, I was told the next one I should read is that. I just want to get the Drifter's Gambit done, since it is
Drifter's
shorty,
Gambit is.
honestly.
It's a pretty short one.
There's just so much information in all of these. Like,
the problem with Drifter's Gambit is like, for as short as it is, it's actually really not that short, because there's a lot of supplemental, like the Ancient Apocalypse armor set. You really need to read those along with it, because what is being talked about in the entries is Shim, not Dr. Shim, Shin. Sorry, chat. The events that the Renegade is talking about, the armor set kind of tells the Drifter's perspective of what's going on during most of it. So I think that's really cool too.
Yeah, I gotta say I've already read that at least. The
Titan set's hilarious.
It is. I started with the gear, and then I decided to go into the books, because I figured
I think that's
the gear is probably more supplemental and would allow me to get tiebacks from the books, instead of me going back and reading through the books first, and then going back to the equipment and being like, oh, that's why that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because the lore tabs are still... They're longer than they were in vanilla, for sure. But they're still nowhere near as long as any of these entries are.
I'll be
And
honest,
to
I just
give
appreciate
credence-
that different classes have different lore entries. To be honest, on Ancient Apocalypse, because I was getting really annoyed with it was like, and I mean, like, that was me being selfishly annoyed because I wanted more information, and like when you get 9 pieces and only what 5 different entries or whatever, I'm like, no.
Well, I'm going to say they did that with the one Scatterhorn, I think it is.
Yeah, that's
and then,
Scatterhorn and almost all
Reverie.
the location centric armor from Forsaken is pretty much the same, because Scatterhorn, Reverie, and then what's the other
Tangled
one?
Web.
Tangled Web.
Yeah,
I think is all
Tangled Web
that.
was about the same too.
The scary. I don't like the look of Tangled Web. It really bugs the crap out of me, and I'm being forced to wear it at the moment.
I've got the Warlock set, and I still love that.
All right. Let's see.
Yeah,
Okay,
Warlock
cool.
set looks good. We should
I will say one thing I really like actually is the Remembrance Iron Banner entries.
Mm-hmm.
As they spread that story out over the course of all of the
class
classes.
items.
But I just love the fact that like that story is being told to us in full now, and it feels like it is an actual account.
Yes.
the one with Aphrodite.
Yep.
Where she's like, I'll show up. Will I get to throw you again? No.
Mm.
Okay, I'm not showing up. Fine. I'm like, yes.
Except for, she shows up anyway, looks at Saladin and goes, "Do we really have to fight a dragon?"
Oh yeah. Yes.
Mm-hmm. You are what you slay, Aphrodite.
Oh my.
Oh god, yeah, the whole Hamkara hunt pieces too. Yeah, I forgot.
Oh, the freaking Great Hunt armor was ridiculous to read, and just I thought it was going to shorten or like tighten what it was that I was thinking of with like interpretations and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
But even just reading it from like Era's take, and then reading it from or being able to read what was going on with Riven and then everything else, it was just amazing.
Speaking of like clearing up and tightening up ideas, I was fucking right about the ghost.
Which ghost?
That ghost are not the shells. The ghost are what's within the shells. I was like, God, yay! Now they finally acknowledge it, and it's in the cards.
Oh yeah, the whole like their sparks of whatever.
I was so happy.
I mean, if you just
that was in
open your eyes and pay attention, you might see that only one thing carries over from the shell.
Right.
The We Before Us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wasn't that the one that explained?
I don't remember if it was that one.
Detailing out how it's created or whatever. It's like he took the spark that was me and wrapped it in metal.
Yeah,
and, like all this stuff. I think that was it.
The line that is said is the I remember when we were born, talking about pain and everything.
Yeah,
that
I think that was the We Before. I want to say that was the We Before Us.
I don't like hearing lines like that. I remember the day I was born.
I got a 575 Tiger's Fight.
Okay.
That's such a good rifle.
Ready to go, Green?
I really like it.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Oh, should probably turn the recording on. All right. You good?
Mm-hmm. Welcome to FFC Top 3, a show where we are FFC hosts count things down from number 3 all the way down to number 1. Thank you for joining us this week. If you have a suggestion, please shoot us a little note, message, Twitter, email. You know all the different places to find us. Shoot us a message of your top 3. Actually, somebody suggested something on top 3 this week on Twitter, and I cannot remember who it was. And I have to go back, and it was from, I think, Tuesday, because it was the morning that I was like asking people for like Ask Me Anything stuff. And somebody mentioned something that it would be a really good top 3. Anyway, you can find us at all of those places. This week, we're discussing top 3 vacation locations. So, I didn't qualify this with anything. I didn't say you had to have been there or anything like that. So we could have some really interesting results to this week. Who's willing to go first or wants to go first this time?
Yeah, I mean, I can start up. That's fine.
Nice. All right, Beard, what's your number 3 vacation location?
Well, to be honest, I haven't done a lot of travel myself, but I figured I would just go over the stuff that at least I have been to and have enjoyed for myself. So just top 3 for places I visited, I guess you could say at that point. My number 3, though, has to at least get onto this list. It's definitely not quite as relaxing as it used to be, but I went there every year when I was a child because it pretty well was a really easy place for the family to go to vacation. And it was also just really good to get to know a little bit more about American history and a few other pieces about like our between American history, between foreign history, to know every little bits and piece that kind of like went into it. But that's Gettysburg. Gettysburg National Military Park is still one of my favorite places to just go to relax in a lot of ways. Mostly because of the amount of information I kind of know of behind the place, but also just because there are a lot of for me at least, I like to look over monuments and whatnot to at least kind of like know what's going on with troop movements, to also know like what's going on with how people were affected or how the war affected them, etc. I've been to a few different places, like obviously Gettysburg, Antietam. We did Fredericksburg, Petersburg, and a few others. A lot of burgs. You don't really realize like how many burgs were fought in the American Civil War, but there were a lot. Anyway, yeah, that's at least number 3 for me. That's one of the better places for me to just kind of go relax and have some fun memories when I was a kid.
Awesome. Blue?
Number 3 for me, honestly, is similar to Beard's. Is a place that we went growing up. We went every year. Would be Estes Park. Estes Park.
Yay!
Yeah, it's seriously one of.
It's gorgeous.
It's a beautiful place, and it's super relaxing. And it's just, I have a lot of fond memories of the summer cabin that we would often stay at growing up. And so just like wanting to share that with my own family, really is just something that, has been kind of on my mind. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely, I would feel remiss if I didn't have that on the list.
Estes Park is probably one of my favorite places to go. I currently live about an hour from Estes. And so on the weekends, Julie and I, when we're driving around, that's kind of where we end up going a lot of the times just because of how pretty it is. And it's really neat to be on top of the world at 13,000 feet.
I was about to say, because it is. I think isn't it the highest? Is that,
it is the highest road.
Pikes Peak, right?
No, Pikes Peak's down by Colorado Springs.
Okay, but Pikes Peak is the highest, right? Isn't that the...
Yes.
Okay.
But the road that you drive through in Estes when you go through Rocky Mountain National Park is the highest elevation road in the U.S.
And speaking of that, actually, Estes Park is like it's butted up against the Rocky Mountain National Park, and that as a kid growing up was just, I mean, it was awesome. Because
it's really cool.
Just, I mean, Rocky National Park is just, it's just an amazingly well put together area.
But yeah, that is definitely, it's not one of my favorite vacation spots necessarily, because I've never technically vacationed there, but it is one of my favorite places to go. Mine is actually, I think, a little bit more closer to Beard's than yours was, because my number 3 is Washington, D.C. And I got to go there when I was in college with my college choir, and we sang on the White House lawn. which was kind of
Nice.
cool. Didn't get to see the president. It would have been George Bush at the time, George Bush Jr., but did get to sing there and hang out in the mall and everything. It's really neat.
Tourist point for DC. If you go to DC, the requirement that I have always told people is you have to go to the Holocaust Museum.
Yes.
And simply out of like both respect and just as a way to educate yourself of what exactly, what that was all about.
And now I'm blanking on the name of the cemetery. Arlington. You should really go to Arlington. Technically, Arlington is not in DC. It's its own little city next to it, smashed up against it, but you really should go there. Yes. I made a mad dash while I was there to be able to see that.
Pins is calling out Vietnam Memorial as well. There's a lot of memorials, but I mean I will be completely honest. Like I went to the Holocaust Museum as a kid, and I still can remember vividly what I experienced there. What's that, like 20 years later now?
Yeah.
I mean it's something that sticks with you, and that's the point, really. And I mean that's the point of it.
If there's something that you want to go to that is not, there's plenty of science museums. Yeah. There's also Library of Congress. There's really deep stuff you can go and do. That is there's so much of that kind of thing there. But there's also all the different Smithsonians. I did get to go to Air and Space, which was cool.
Nice.
But yeah, DC is a ton of fun. There's no limit to how many different things you can go and see there. Tip, though, do not drive. Because they have lanes that switch directions halfway through the day based on traffic. So if you do not want to be really confused as to what the heck is going on, do not drive. Ride the bus in or ride the subway in, and you'll be okay. Beard, what's your number 2?
Number 2 is going to actually be when I visited my sister in California, and that was to San Diego. I don't know what it is about San Diego, because I've been to, and granted, I've never been to a West Coast city before that.
Mm-hmm.
But I do not like New York. I do not like Philadelphia.
Philly is dirty.
Yeah. I don't necessarily like Tampa that much either.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that too.
But there's just something about San Diego that it just felt like it was a little bit more inviting. And though there are tall buildings that are around you, of course, especially like downtown around the convention center, which is what I was primarily there for because it was Comic-Con time. The biggest thing that I just liked about it was like the way that everybody was very, generally speaking, everybody was very nice. Everybody was very welcoming. But you could go to a place and there would be places that just felt like they weren't that noisy. It didn't really feel like a city necessarily. So that was one thing that was very off-putting about going to it. And of course, there's the nightlife and everything like that too. It felt like it was definitely alive. So I appreciate San Diego quite a bit. I would actually love it if I could go back and visit at one point or another. But yeah, that's definitely my number 2. I was also able to breathe out there. Very different from East Coast air because for some reason I didn't have sinus problems.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's completely different out there. Like I didn't expect that like the dry heat was going to feel that way for me, but it was much nicer for my head than anything else I've had to experience. Like I friggin' hate the East Coast now because of the fact that I can barely breathe. And I keep thinking about how it was when I visited my sister, and I'm like, oh my God, I can actually breathe and I can sleep right and there's no problems with me. Everybody says like go to Florida when you get older. No, I'm gonna move out west. Forget it. I'm gonna move out west when I get older.
Nice. Blue, number 2 for you.
My number 2 is Italy. I actually lived in Italy for 6 months, and just especially out of Rome, and it was probably like one of the best. Like we were over there for school, and I just have really fond memories of that area, especially Rome and Orvieto. Just simply kind of going back to what we were talking about with DC about having so much stuff to just do. You literally could spend your entire life in Rome and not see the whole place, which historically makes sense, given what all went on in that city. But it's an amazing area. It's an awesome place in my mind. But yeah, so that would be my number 2.
Nice. Mine is really low key compared to both of yours. Because my number 2 is actually related to family. Because I didn't do a lot of vacationing growing up, and if you notice, my number 3 was like a college trip with my choir. So my number 2 is, even to this day when we go on vacation, a lot of times we end up vacationing near family just because of finances and whatnot, because it's cheaper to vacation near family and you get to see them, so it's kind of like a double whammy. But my number 2 is Eufaula, Oklahoma, which is a tiny, tiny town in Oklahoma, about an hour south of Tulsa. And it is a lake town. There's a Eufaula Lake, which is down there. And it is a very large, winding, lots of different like ins and outs lake that I learned how to wakeboard on, and I've done jet skiing on it, fishing. I've done poker runs, which is kind of a fun thing to do, because you normally hear about poker runs being a motorcycle thing where you drive from place to place and you pick up your card, and then at the end you see what hand you have. Well, you do the same thing on a lake, and this lake is big enough. You go from marina to marina, and you turn in, or you pick up cards, and then you turn them in at the end and see what hand you got, and it's just a way to kind of cruise the lake in the afternoon. But my grandpa lives down there currently, and he is somebody who has kind of been always a major part of my life, and I like to go and visit him. He's funny. He reminds me of Sean Connery, and he's the reason that is my number 2 for vacation spots, all the way down in Eufaula. There's not a whole lot to do besides go to the lake and spend time there, but it's still good enough for me. Beard. We're down to number 1s though.
Yeah. And first off, I got places that I'm mad about that I didn't get a chance to go. The first is actually when my family went down to Florida, different time period, and they went to the Kennedy Space Museum. Very mad about that because I would have loved to have gone. So there's number 1 on that one. The second one is when my sister had a chance to go to Tokyo. Would love to visit that. She was also on Okinawa Island. Had a blast while she was over there. She was there for 37 days.
Dang.
I'm not jealous at all. Anyway. But as far as my number 1 would be, I remember this one fondly from family as well, but it was Rhode Island. But it was a long time ago.
Okay.
I have been and when I say a long time ago, I mean I was 7, 8 maybe. That's the last time I've been. But it was just nice to go there because it was a completely different climate. And though there wasn't that much to do because we were up visiting family for the most part, it was just nice to get up there and go someplace completely different in a way. But even then, just like being around New England area is a very different experience, of course, from where it is here in PA. Pennsylvania definitely is much warmer than what Rhode Island was, but granted, that was, like I said, years ago, so I don't know what global warming's done to it. Anyway, the biggest thing though is that it's a beautiful area. There's a lot of stuff that it felt more open and kind of alive in comparison, even what it was when I was a kid back then, to how it was here in PA. And again, I don't know how it's progressed, but I do remember that one pretty well. And it was a lot of fun.
Nice. That is one like state I've always kind of wanted to go to, mainly
Mhm.
because of how tiny it is. And I don't know why I really want to go to it because it's tiny, but it's always stuck out to me. And yeah.
Well, you have the benefit that if you go up that way, you can always go hop, skip, and a jump to Massachusetts.
That's true.
You've also got Connecticut up that way, and really, you have Vermont as well, which isn't too far out. Besides, so between the few extra states that are like really close with the New England, really helps. But it's the coastal feeling of the way that Rhode Island is definitely different from most of the other areas in New England area.
Okay. Blue. What's your number one?
Greece. So while I was over in Italy, one of the places that we went was Greece, and we did a tour of the entire island, and Athens, Delphi, all the big spots there, and that's actually where I got engaged. So to have a chance to go back there and just kind of relive some of that, and then also just because that country is really pretty. It's just super. At least when we were there, it was super relaxing, and just really something that you can really get into, not being caught up with a lot of the insanity of the internet and everything like that, because they don't really care. I mean, that's a lot of the areas that we were in when we were over there was a lot of smaller town areas, especially. So that's just some fond memories there. But yeah, that's my number one, is going back and kind of getting to revisit the road that we traveled while we were over there.
There's a lot of places I want to go, and Greece and Italy in general are like Greece and Italy. I'm saying in general are kind of the two on the tops of my list that I'd like to
Italy.
go.
I mean, like Italy, to kind of go off that, Italy has some of the most like diverse areas. Like it really does. I mean, and it in retro, like in big picture stuff, no, it's not like super diverse. Like you don't have like drastic climates or anything like that. But like culture wise, they have a lot of differences. Like, I mean, you have Pompeii, and Napoli, and then, Venice and Rome, and there's just like it's just completely different attitudes all together. And I mean, again, going back to I'm when I travel, I don't tend to like go out of, like, when we travel, I tend to kind of locate my area and then stick within it. So like when we were in Rome, that was really nice, because Rome is one of those areas when you're vacationing or when you're living there, you can literally walk the same like 6 blocks every day for months and find something new. Like
Nice.
every single time. Like, I mean, and that was really cool. One of the favorite stories that I have from Italy is when we were out there. We had actually had a campus out in Dusante, and we would have to take the bus into the city whenever we needed to go into the city. And there was this big rock that we'd just all sit there, like it was just a bench. Well, it was probably 2 or 3 weeks into our time there, and we realized that this rock was actually formerly a support of one of the aqueducts for Rome. And
that's cool.
Yeah, well, it is, but then you have to also comprehend the fact that we were using something that was older than the United States as a bench. I mean, like this, the significance and I guess, let me rephrase that. The insignificance of our time on this planet kind of gets hammered home when you start realizing that there are things that, humanity has designed that are 2 or 3 times as old as everything that we kind of take for granted. And like,
right.
That's just that realization. Just like, I mean, we got to do the Scavi tour, which is where you go into the catacombs underneath the Vatican. And like, just historically, learning all about that and actually seeing it and actually getting to, in some cases, touch it. you know, it just hammers that lesson home more than you can read it in a book. You can, you know, do all this stuff, but like Pins and I were chatting a little bit in chat right now about Pompeii. Pompeii is very similar. You go to Pompeii and you are, it's an entirely dead city. Like it's you know, there's nothing living there. It's a big tourist spot, obviously, and it's just, you walk through this place and they have rebuilt some of it. They've also left some of it as they found it, and some of the stuff that they found were obviously the human remains from Vesuvius. And just seeing these remains on shelves, like, I mean, they're basically pieces of pottery at this point, and it's just, you know, again, that realization that really, honestly, we have been here for nothing more than the speck of a moment. Is just a very heavy message and a heavy thing to kind of finally get kind of your hands around. So, but yeah, that's my number one to go back is Greece, just simply because of the memories that I have of that area.
Nice. You know, I think everybody's number ones are like tied into memories and whatnot, or just in the enjoyment. Because I mean, that's really what makes a vacation spot. It's not like what you're doing with it. It's literally like the memories that are made there. And mine's kind of similar to yours in so much that I got married in my number one, like the location. And that is Manitou Springs, Colorado. Julie and I got married in Garden of the Gods, which, for those of you who may not know, is actually free. You don't have to book anything for it. You can literally just show up and do that, and it's kosher. Like they don't ask for anything. It is one of the few places in the United States that is it's private, and it's remaining free to the public to be able to use because of this guy's will, which is kind of cool. But Manitou is really fun. A lot of my family was able to come up and spend that time with us, and we were able to hike and ended up moving to Colorado kind of because of how much in love we fell with Manitou and the environment around there. So that is my number one. Does anybody have any also rans? Because I know I do. I think Beard kind of went into his. Oh, God.
Yeah, I mean, I do, but we'd be here for a long time.
Name one also rand.
Alaska.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a loner. I don't like people in my normal mode, and so Alaska is. First off, Alaska is freaking beautiful.
Okay.
It's super quiet, and it is. I really find the entire climate up there very fascinating because it's got the jacked up day. So like you'll go like 12 hours or 14 hours of straight sun, and then you'll turn around and, you know, I think that's like the 6 months. It's also like one of the just like random trivia fact that I've always found interesting about Alaska. It's like one of the only place that like you get paid to live by the government. Like they basically are like, no, we're going to pay you because this place is crazy. I think that's just really interesting. And like, if you've ever been to Alaska, you'll quickly realize why. But it's just beautiful. Like it's just a really, really, in my mind, it's just a really, from what I remember when I vacationed there before, and I was really little, so I don't really remember a lot. But again, kind of that sentiment of just like seeing like the raw nature of the planet, and just seeing kind of like, you know, what's going on and realizing, you know, your place in things.
Yeah.
I mean, you could always use the excuse that you're just going to see Anchorage, Alaska, because that's where Bob Ross lived.
Yeah, but the challenge is getting to Anchorage, Alaska, because I mean, like it's
isn't it a seafair? Like you can only get there by boat type thing, boat or plane.
Plane, if I remember. I can't remember. I don't remember if it's Anchorage, but there is literally one area that like you can only fly in on an
like a
amphibious
seaplane
plane.
type.
You have to fly. Like, it's crazy. It's just a completely different way of life from everything that we're like, in the I know it's technically
Continental.
I know it's technically part of the continental, but it's really kind of not. But like especially in the Midwest area, and we just take so much stuff for granted. So for me, like, vacation's really about like pushing kind of beyond that and seeing different lifestyles. Wicked in chat says that they're from
Fairbanks.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I have a couple friends who are up in Alaska, and it's just like talking to them. It's just they're I mean, the way of life, and it's completely and utterly different. And I think that's just fascinating. I really just think it's fascinating.
Beard, do you have an also Rand?
I already gave the couple that I could think of.
Which one would you say would be your top out of those? Would it be Japan?
Probably, but it would be more Okinawa than Tokyo, I think, because Okinawa would be more a little bit closer to like what I would like to have seen of Japan, more like the older style, if you will.
Pew pew.
But
Choo,
in the
choo!
same, I could say that about some other countries that are out there that are similar, at least in the the Asian-ish vibe. But I think that Okinawa would be a little bit more top of the list.
I learned a Japanese word the other day because a friend of ours actually works for a travel agency.
Yeah.
But that is few and far between and has nothing to do with the show. My also Rand. Don't ask me to say it on the show. That would be bad.
Okay.
My also Rand is actually the same as Penn's number one. It is Sedona. Sedona is a weird hippie-ish, but also Western-ish. Also lots of odd metaphysical things. It's just a cool, weird town that when Julie and I went on our first road trip together, we both kind of just enjoyed the heck out of, because every place we went there was live music, and it was like all these retirees, people playing guitar, and it was adorable and fun. And there's a place called Slide Rock, which is a natural water slide, which is kind of cool. It's a river water slide that is just this slate rock. And that would be my also Rand as far as that goes. Because I think if any place I could go to and retire, that might be the place. But I don't know. But that is our top 3 vacation spots. And actually, Dolan was the one who mentioned, I think, the top 3 that I was talking about earlier about Twitter. And I think that would be perfect for next week, because that'll save the one I was going to do for the week after, which would be kind of Halloween themed. But this one is, if you were an action figure, what would be your top 3 accessories? What would come in the box with you if you were an action figure? So a little bit outside of the box for a top 3 for next week. I like
that one. That one's cool.
Yeah.
Favorite magic helmet.
That's a really, I like that. That's a really cool one.
I liked it a lot too. So thank you, Dolan, if you were the one who actually submitted that at first. Thank you so much. Again, you can reach out to us in all the different places: Twitter, Gmail, Discord. If you have creative ideas like that for top 3, we love and we enjoy doing these. So hit us up there, and remember, everybody loves a list.
Wiki. Doop.
Oh man.
Yeah, I already know mine for that one.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I may have said it already on Twitter because it was like a real fast turnaround that I mentioned it, but I might change it.
Top 3 action figure accessories.
Yeah, like if you were an action figure, what would be your top 3 accessories type thing? Which was one of the coolest things I've heard somebody come up with so far. Like, it's just out of the box. Blue is incomplete without coffee. So it's not an accessory. He's claiming that you have to have coffee.
Well, I mean, yeah, that is true. I like where your head is at, Dolan.
Oh, man. Coffee cup, smartphone, and a hidden knife.
God, why do you have to ruin things?
Is that literally what your list is going to end up being?
Maybe. God, now I have to change it.
No, we're not recording it. The only people who know are live chat. Speaking of which, I actually need to go get more coffee. So, I will be back in a hot minute.
Hot coffee minute. Wait, no, that's bad. Never mind.
Please don't write Anna with exclamation point. Oh. Wicked, you're weird.
Oh my.
I feel like I missed something. But that's nothing new.
Hashtag pew pew choo choo.
Hey, thanks for the sub, Sniper.
Yay, subs.
It pays for like buttons and stuff.
Okay.
I think. I have no idea.
Buttons.
Buttons.
Buttons? Gumdrop buttons?
Oh, I was thinking of a muffin button, but yeah, gumdrop buttons work too. Muffin button.
Where in the world did you get that muffin?
Ah, the muffin button.
Muffin button.
You almost have Mickey down with that.
Golly.
Golly. I can't. Yeah, there's no way for me. My dad used to do.
Green.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna.
He wins. He wins on that
Yep.
one.
Yep. Beard is the.
Gorsh.
Why do you do these? Like, how? Why and how? Like, do you practice these? This is something I used to ask my dad because he could do some of these voices too. And it's like, what are you doing?
No, I really never practiced most of them. I just figured out a way to manipulate my voice enough to make them work.
That's so funny. Mine would have a saxophone, blackboard, and TC treasure chest. Uh-huh. No, probably not the treasure chest, though I know where you're going with that. And
Why,
maybe...
Z? Because I can. That's why.
The real challenging one is usually Donald Duck. That's the one that always.
I
no, that's what I mean. It's like
yeah.
My dad is able to do Donald Duck like perfectly, and it's one of the scary most. It's one of the few things that's like it's almost as impressive as
creepy.
It is scary.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, to hear it in person,
Right? Yo, that's what I mean. It's like when you're like looking at them and they're doing it, and I'm like, you do not have equipment like on your throat. How are you doing that nonsense?
The guy who originally did it didn't have any equipment.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah.
But it's one thing because they did still have to doctor it a little bit to tone it down versus what he could do. And that's the biggest thing to kind of put it in perspective with like how he was able to do what he did. He had to throw his voice pretty far to make it work. I almost kind of look at what Sean Shamel has to do for Goku with screaming, because it's about on par to what the original voice actor for Donald Duck had to do. Unfortunately, he had to
yeah,
voice in a
yeah.
different way.
Interesting.
Oh,
Because I've tried
did
it, but
Kashin
it rips my
upset?
throat
Oh my
apart.
God, Kashin took the boss from pins.
Yeah, I saw that.
Uh-oh.
The maniacal laughter coming from Blue.
I've been waiting for like months for someone to dethrone pins from that thing.
I didn't realize Bit Boss was up
That
during
took a
normal
while.
stream.
Yeah, it's up there. Well, the thing is like it doesn't just count bits; it also counts like subs and follows and stuff.
Oh,
So like it'll carve out stuff, but it's been
she didn't
like...
even realize. That's awesome. Uh-oh.
Oh,
I'm
no.
sorry, Panda. It sucks.
That's okay. My tablet, I loaded the tablet up for chat, and I don't have video, so you know there's that. Like, that's fun. Okay. Are we good to go?
Yes.
As good as I'll ever be.
Green, we did not have a question this week, right?
I did, but it was a last minute thing, and I'm not actually using it as an official one. I was just curious how many people that followed me actually played the original pen and paper.
Cyberpunk?
And
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Did you get any responses?
Yeah, I got like not like for comments, but like 41 people answered the poll, and a giant majority have not. I think we only had maybe 2 people, maybe 3 people that had played the pen and paper version. So,
yeah, well, and to be fair, the pen and paper version was kind of like in its time. It was not a. It was kind of like Shadowrun when it first started out, which actually is very similar because it's
Well, before we get going, did you guys hear about the monotony that's going on with CD Projekt Red and the writer of The Witcher?
Yeah, what? So I have my own opinion because the guy kind of signed a contract, like.
Well, he screwed himself over.
Yeah,
but
I'm
apparently
like,
there's something with Polish law that he might be able to get around with it. And
right.
At least get something back from it. I don't think it would be
that.
the. I don't think it would be the amount that he's asking.
Oh God, no! Because he's asking
something
for an astronomical thing. I mean, and rightfully so.
He's asking for just about like 1 or 2% of what they ended up getting back from it. And I was like, dude, no, I don't think you're ever going to get that much.
No.
But now I'm looking back at this, and I'm looking over like what happened with the guys with Cyberpunk, and it's an almost very similar situation. So now I'm wondering, how many of these has CD Projekt Red been like leeching for to try to just grab the name and get it at like a really low end and then turn it into something bigger? I don't know.
I mean,
it's
but
possible considering
fair,
that they're
though,
the ones running it.
Well, I mean, and to be fair, I was about to say that just sounds like good business. Like, I mean, if they do it legit and above board, which they are. I mean, if you look at it from the business standpoint for what they're doing with Cyberpunk, that's exactly what they did. They bought Cyberpunk from I can't even remember the original company, which I'm terrible. Feel terrible. Well, like it's not their writer because Gibson was actually like.
Gibson's on board and actually helping with the story. Last time I heard.
Yeah. Well, he's also he's big. So Gibson was huge with. I mean, Gibson basically found or coined Cyberpunk, but what was it? Gibson was. I want to say he was actually one of the testers, if I remember right. Let me make sure I'm remembering that correctly.
Yeah, I know he's quite a bit more hands-on because with the guy for The Witcher, he was like, no, I know where this is going to go, and it's not going to go anywhere, and to his dismay...
Oh, John Williams. John Williams was the playtester. Sorry. Gibson was the one that coined cyberspace, and then was he's basically considered the founder of Cyber, which I'll get into a little bit. But like Gibson's also really involved with what's called Cyberpunk Red, which is the reimagining or revival of the tabletop RPG that's going to be coming out next year. And they're like, I mean, they're going, so they retconned all of Firestorm and most of, I think, 3.0 in the Cyberpunk universe. Like they're going in a completely different direction, because basically Firestorm, and we'll get into a little bit too here, but like Firestorm was the kind of conclusion-esque of Cyberpunk's universe, because it basically ended with a nuke being dropped in Night City, which there's really no coming back from that. Like, you know, it's kind of Night City is gone for the most part at like the close of Firestorm. And so,
well, Blade Runner might have a few questions for you.
Yeah, like it's like, yeah. Well, and I guess that's true. I mean, like you can always argue, because it's not just Night City in the tabletop. Like in Cyberpunk, the video game, they make it seem like Night City is the only one that's like this, whereas in the actual, and again, I'll get into this, but in the actual tabletop, it's the entire like world, like everything.
Yeah.
But like, but what I was getting to is Project Red purchased everything 100%. Like they just bought all rights. So they're pushing to like copyright the term cyberpunk. They're doing all this stuff. Like they are like hardcore putting all the cards on the table, saying, you know, they're buying it all up front, because again, kind of like with The Witcher, this is kind of their thing. They did the similar thing with The Witcher as a gamble, and it paid off in dividends. To their credit, that was all above board, like what they did. I don't have any problem with what I mean, I'm looking at, because I was reading that article, and he's like, I think it was the lawyer or whatever of the author who was like, well, you know, we signed this and blah, 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 but he didn't think that it was going to be this successful. I'm like, dude, tough. I mean, like, no offense, but that's not the company's fault. You were the one that didn't think it was going to go anywhere, so you were like, yeah, just pay me up front instead of paying me royalties.
I'm gonna say you were the one that didn't want to stand behind your
I'm like that
you created.
To me, what that sounds like is you're like take backs. Like there are no take backs here.
Can be choosers.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did see that. That was like was that Wednesday or Tuesday or Wednesday, wasn't it?
Tuesday, Wednesday. I forget when I picked up on it, but yeah, I knew it was earlier in the week that had started, or well, that we got notified.
Right. Yeah. I guess that's
true. It's been going on for a little while here, and nobody. His lawyers didn't want to bring it public, but CD Projekt Red basically said, "Well, we don't care. We're going to take it public, and
because
really care less who sees it."
I mean, well, and again, going back to it, I mean, like, what are they get? They have nothing to lose. Like they're like, no. we don't have anything to be ashamed of here.
The only thing that they have anything to kind of not gain by it, if you will, is just like it's PR for kind of showcasing PR for PR's sake.
Right.
Some people just aren't really big fans of that at the moment.
Yeah, I guess that's
the only
true.
thing that I can like really see right now that would like cause it. I could give two shits one way or another, quite frankly, but
well, and I go back to like reading the underlying like what actually is going on. I'm like, again, it's sitting there. I'm like, why is this even? Like,
why is it a thing?
You made a bad call. Like it's tough. Like it sucks. But yeah, what was the other? There was another thing. Now the one that does suck is Telltale, because that thing's just continuing to. Because I think officially they're gone now, right? I thought I saw.
They're officially done.
They fired the rest of them, right? Because the team's completely disbanded.
Yeah, I'm gonna say because of all the backlash that had happened from them saying, "Well, we're gonna keep on a skeleton crew team to finish up."
That and then
was the
lawsuit.
And they ended up saying we don't have the means to continue with Walking Dead then at that point, and they just said the heck with it. So yeah, it's over. They're gone.
Which is really sad. But I mean,
It is.
some things came out in light that were like, oh, that was I was not aware that was going on.
And that's the problem. Like, we don't know a lot of the inner workings of this company or these companies, and in some cases, no, we don't have to. It's technically none of our business because we're just the consumer. But there's just too much that goes into this anymore. That
people become so ingrained into the culture of whatever show it is.
Well, with Telltale, there was legit labor violations.
Oh, I know.
So like that was what I was like. I was like, because I think that came out. That was another one that came out like Wednesday, I think, or maybe it was even this morning.
Whenever the Bungie devs went crazy again, because a bunch of them.
Well, no, like the lawsuit.
The
lawsuit went public was like I think it was yesterday or this morning. And I was reading the whole thing, and I was like, oh, wow. Like, there was a lot of funds on the table that was being talked about. So, yeah. And Z's saying, working in the industry as a contractor. Yeah, I mean, working as a contractor in general can be really, it's just a rough gig.
Well, even like the taxes and crap. Taxes for independent contractors are really fucking shitty. Like, you're not going to get any help whatsoever. But
okay, let's
normal show.
Jump into this one, because this one I guess here's a question real quick before we jump in. I do have a legit question for chat. I'm going to put this in Discord too, because I'm curious what people want. When I post show notes over on our site, because I'm not putting the full show notes on Podbean. Wow, Podbean or YouTube. When I put show notes, how in depth do you want me to put show notes? Like what's the idea that the audience here would appreciate seeing as far as show notes go? Because I'm curious what you guys would think. Because like for like tonight's episode, I have how many pages? 10, I think. 9.
11.
I don't even know. I have 9 to 11 pages of information. I mean,
pages of information.
Yeah, all the pages of information. Like, is that? I mean, obviously that's significantly more than what you probably want. But is that something that you guys would want access to in some form or fashion, or do you like just having the summary and the discussion points and links? And I'll try to post this over in Discord as well to get people's thoughts. Yeah, Z, you owe me notes too, so I know you're like me on the notes section. But just let me know in chat as we go through just what your guys' thoughts are on that one, because I'm just curious if anyone wants the insanity of the rabbit holes here. All right.
You don't.
Yeah, it's just be careful what you wish for.
Run away quickly.
All right,
run away. Hey, rabbit hole, I get it.
All right. Let's see. We're doing Podbean or Twitch tonight?
I don't know. Are we doing the timer? Or are we going to relax on that one?
If you can, that would be amazing.
Is it chrono start?
Yeah, start chrono, I think.
Start chrono. And that's exclamation point, right?
No, period, start
period. Chrono. I'm just gonna check. Okay.
Coolio. And then it's just dot chrono.
To check on it.
Mm-hmm.
I just couldn't remember the initial command. All right, I'm prepped.
Okay, cool. All right, I might just put it all in a separate blog and post that then. Okay, cool. Cool. All right, here we go. Today's chat is brought to you by the support of all our Twitch subscribers. Through the patronage you provide the Focus Fire chat team through the Twitch platform, we are able to provide you with the weekly podcast as well as the website and other aspects of Focus Fire chat. If you have any interest in becoming a subscriber of the FFC and gaining access to some exclusive features over in the Discord server, please be sure to visit our Twitch account and click on the subscribe button. If you're an Amazon Prime member, remember that you do have a free subscription to Twitch every month that can be used for this. And for those of you who are already subscribers, thank you again for your generosity. You may have heard the whispers of guardians gathering in the shadows, exploring the mysteries of this world and the worlds which surround us. We are all in search of truth. Sometimes we need to focus that search, focus that fire. And so we come together. Join us. Join the discussion. Welcome to Focused Fire Chat. Welcome back for episode 31 of Extra Lore, recorded live on October 5th, 2018 over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat. As always, I want to give a big shout out to our live chat here with us tonight. Thank you so much for joining us once again. Our topic for tonight's episode is going to be a look at Cyberpunk 2077. But first, let's run through a quick introduction of those on the show for tonight. As always, this is your host, Blue Crew 86. Next up, we have our own master of social media, the one and only Green-Eyed Music Lover. Green, I hope you're doing well. How has the week treated you so far?
Hey, it's been good. It's been good. I'm 569. We went through 2 parts of the raid last Saturday. We're going to try again tomorrow, see if we can get to Riven. And we're going to continue the grind because that's what we're living now. But yay!
Well, rounding out the usual team, we have the man who is known far and wide as the Destiny Lore Content Cop, the one and only Beard Grizzly. Beard, how are you doing tonight?
You know, one of these days I'm going to actually make a video about that. Actually, I've already got one.
Yes!
I do.
It's going to be a version of, like, Guardian School?
No. It's...
Is it bad cop, worse cop?
No, I guess it's going to be more something like, hey, I need to rectify a situation here that somebody decided to cause, and here's how we're going to fix it, and this person is going to apologize in their next video or something. I don't know. I can't force them to do anything. Not really, though.
So now, the other thing I wanted to see is Beard putting out a YouTube video of a Reno 911 themed.
Oh God!
Oh man! Well,
I'm already playing around with machinima. I don't need any more excuses to mess around with it more. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Well, I guess not last week, but this week we had a quick question about our communities, well, or Greens followers over at Twitter, experience with the Green. Correct me here. The tabletop version of Cyberpunk, right? Okay. And I think the question was basically, does anyone have experience with it? And the answer was a resounding
no.
Nope. Nope.
41 votes for this one, and I only had it out for 2 hours. So if you missed it and you're like, "Wait, I didn't see it," no, don't worry. I literally put it out today, 2 hours before the show started. And we had 41 people who voted, and 90% of them said, "Nope, never tried it." And granted, the original game came out in the 80s, so I'm not super surprised. And I know there's been versions of it, but there's so many different tabletop RPGs. And I know it's, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's similar to Shadowrun.
Yeah, actually, yeah. So Shadowrun, actually, I'm going to get myself in trouble. I believe Shadowrun is an offshoot of this. Yes. I want to say, because I know like the genre from a literary standpoint Cyberpunk was primary, but I think from a take, because Cyberpunk was it 2013 was the first iteration, and that was 1988, and then 2020 came out in 93.
94? No.
Yeah.
No. 94 is one of the events happened in 94.
Right. Yeah. Story. So like, Shadowrun. Let's just put it this way: Shadowrun is around the same. It's thematically the same. Very, very similar. Shadowrun tends to be much more fantastical in the sense of there's a lot more heavy. It's a lot more fantasy based. It's more science fantasy. Cyberpunk tends to be more science fiction. We will be getting into that distinction here after the quick intro. That is actually a question that we had. So we will be kind of talking about that distinction. But so like they are both similar and very distinct in their own way. But yes, I mean, you have like Cyberpunk, you have Shadowrun, you have like Slay Industries. Those are the big ones that I remember playing. And I know there's tons more. I mean, Steampunk is out there. It's just, yeah. But yes, it's very similar to anyone who has had experience or exposure to Shadowrun, and not Cyberpunk. Yes, Cyberpunk is it's like comparing Star Wars and Star Trek, right? Star Wars is more fantasy. Star Trek is more hard science, which is, I'll probably get in trouble for that, but whatever.
It's okay.
It's not wrong. I mean, you can't get mad at me for being wrong on that one. So, no, I mean, start arguing, guys.
Right. Anyway, moving on.
We will be there forever if we get into that argument.
Let's go.
So obviously, So that being said, like obviously there's not a lot of exposure for our particular community to Cyberpunk, which is actually kind of the point of Extra Lore, right? It's to kind of branch out to see what other games are out there. And I will be completely transparent. I've been fighting the urge to go down the rabbit hole of really getting into the lore of the Cyberpunk series, because it's a very fascinating series. And just the genre in and of itself is one of my favorite genres from a literary point of view. And that's just, that's just my own thing. But so obviously I'm really hyped to actually talk about this. I know that from the little bit that our two hosts here, Beard and Green, have managed to go through the multiple pages of notes that I've given them, I think that they're also excited. But we'll find out. But let's run through our topic intro as usual, and then we're going to jump right into it. I think we're going to start off really with a introduction. One of the preliminary questions that I've gotten from our Discord chat, and then also a little bit on Twitter, has been, what is Cyberpunk? Not the series, but the genre itself. What is that? So we're going to dive into that immediately following these topic intros. In our last Extra Lore episode, we took a brief look at God of War. If you ever miss an episode and would like to catch up, please be sure to check out FocusFireChat.com for archives, articles, and links to the other aspects of Focus Fire Chat. If you don't mind, please rate and, if you can, review the show on iTunes, Podbean, or whichever podcasting app you use to enjoy podcasts. Reviews in particular are extremely helpful as they help us show up on charts, and that helps others find the FFC community. To those of you who have already taken the time to leave us a review, thank you again. As many of you already know, Focus Fire Chat is a cross-community gathering, where the intent is to offer a week-long, in-depth view of a particular subject from within the lore of Destiny and other games. With the Extra Lore series, we delve into a game series other than Destiny for a full month, giving the group a chance to get a feel for the other games that our community loves to play. As with the normal chat topics, Extra Lore is decided by the group through a monthly poll. After the month's discussion has come to an end, we get together to stream a high-level summary of the chat for those who were unable to participate. Please be sure to also give some support to the other podcasts in the Guardian Radio Network, links of which can be found on our website. If you're a fan of lore in all its various forms, be sure to also check out thelorenetwork.com, where you can find a wide variety of some amazing content that covers a number of different titles and mediums. Extra Lore for October is going to be a discussion on the lore of Bloodborne, so be sure to jump into the Discord server and weigh in on that. With all that out of the way, where does everyone think that the best place to start is when looking for a really basic understanding of Cyberpunk 2077? All right, so like I said before we jumped into there, we're going to kind of start off with really a definition of what is cyberpunk. It's a pretty common question when we talk about this particular game and genre in general. But I do want to preface this. I know people love me when I preface things like this, but I want to call out the fact that this is a dystopian future. This game will be dealing with political topics. And so basically, I'm not endorsing any particular political view. I am going to try to stay 100% just in the game world. So if it sounds like I'm endorsing a particular political view, call me whatever you want, but that's just me saying that so no one gets their panties in a knot. Anyways, cyberpunk. Cyberpunk is a genre, or a subgenre technically, of science fiction that features advanced science and technology in an urban dystopian future. On the one side, you generally have powerful mega corporations and private security forces, and then on the other side, you have this dark and gritty underworld of illegal trade, gangs, drugs, and just general vice. In between all of this is politics, corruption, and social upheaval. And this is generally summed up, you see this in a lot of cyberpunk works. It's generally summed up in the quote, high tech, low life. Originally a literary movement, cyberpunk has actually become a subcultural organism with a life of its own that has basically grown to focus on the blending of low life and high tech. The term itself can be traced to a short story, Cyberpunk, by Bruce Bethke. And then there are, of course, what's considered the, quote, core cyberpunk authors, end quote, that are generally accepted to have laid the groundwork of the cyberpunk movement. Primarily along them is an individual by the name William Gibson. Gibson is actually considered to be the founder of cyberpunk with his 1984 release of Neuromancer, which drew influence from the existing punk subculture and the early hacker culture that was actually gaining momentum at that time. Then you also have Bruce Sterling, Pat Cardigan, Rudy Rucker, John Shirley, Louis Shiner. You have people such as Philip K. Dick. Blade Runner is another really one that a lot of people are going to recognize. In the current generation of TV shows, you have Blade Runner. And then Altered Carbon is another one that a lot of people are probably familiar with.
Aeon Flux.
Aeon Flux is...
Would it be considered cyberpunk?
Yes, it would. It would. I kind of consider Aeon Flux to be kind of its own... Are we talking about like the story, or are we talking about the animated series?
Talking about the story.
So the story would be cyberpunk. The animated series is kind of its own oddity. It's amazing, but it's its own like thing, which is, it's really good. If you guys haven't seen the original Aeon Flux anime, I really highly recommend it. Don't go into it expecting a mature theme though. Like, just fair warning on that one.
Very Ghost in the Shell level.
Yeah, even more so in some regards, because Aeon Flux is... God, I'm going to get sucked in the rabbit hole of that one. Aeon Flux is so random. Like, even watching Aeon Flux in the right order, you still have to watch it a couple times to understand what exactly is going on. But in regards to, like, the dystopian commentary on social norms and the use of cyber technology and nanotechnology in a way... it definitely falls within the realm of cyberpunk. I would almost argue that it's almost more of a nanopunk subgenre, which I'll get into just a little bit. There's a couple. So like cyberpunk is a subgenre of science fiction. There are subgenres of cyberpunk. Yep. So they're like in some cases sub genres of science fiction, and this is normal for literary genres. They'll splinter off and then splinter off and splinter off. And Aeon Flux, I think, kind of transcends the line between what's called nanopunk and cyberpunk, and I'll get into that in just a second, because that is actually one of the questions that I want to hear your guys' points of view on. But real quick, to jump back to Gibson. The reason Gibson is considered to be kind of commonly considered to be the founder of cyberpunk is he's actually the individual who coined the term cyberspace in Neuromancer. And it basically, he used that phrase in Neuromancer and it just resonated with the cyberpunk world. And so what we want to do real quick is if we break that into its roots, we'll see really a definition starting to emerge, right? So you have cyber, and the reference here is to technology, which is cyberspace, cybernetic enhancements, biotechnology, nanotechnology, all just technology in general. And then punk. Punk is generally defined as the reference to the general people and overall attitude that was found within the punk movement. Protagonists will obviously tend to be the outsiders, the anti-heroes, dissenters, misfits. And basically the common theme between all protagonists who fall within a blank punk theme is that there is a subversive nature that all of them have. They are the outliers of the bell curve, and they are the ones that are kind of like the anti-hero before the anti-hero was really conceived of really fully. And so that's where that kind of comes from. So when you put those together, you have a dystopian, Mad Max-esque type thing.
Could we possibly say they never asked for this?
I never asked for this.
I had to get it in there somewhere.
In cyber, and the funny thing is in Cyberpunk there is actually a to blend that with the Mad Max reference. There is actually a in the tabletop version. I don't know. So fair warning, we don't know a lot about 2077 as a video game in and of itself. We know bits and pieces because we've obviously had, nearly
30 books.
Well, we have 30 books, but I'm also thinking, what is that? 10, 20, 30 years of the RPG at this point.
And it's been 3 editions.
3 editions.
Point, hasn't it?
Yes, it's been, it was 2013, 2020, and then 3.0/Firestorm. And Firestorm has been basically softly confirmed that it has been retconned. Majority of it, there are bits and pieces, and I'm going to get into that with the corporate wars. But Firestorm was mostly retconned. But there is a group within that who are basically road warriors. They're called gypsies. And that's what they are. They are like the Mad Max-esque survivors of this country that has fallen apart at its seams. And yes, they did not ask for it. They were actually literally born into it. But real quick, one of the questions that we got asked, I put a call out in the Discord, and Taylor B had actually asked, let me make sure I get this correct. He wants to know our thoughts on the parallels and differences between cyberpunk and other punk genres. It's an excellent question because there are, like we kind of been saying, there's a lot of nuanced differences, right? The primary offshoots of what I would consider the quote punk subgenre within science fiction is obviously cyberpunk, which we've kind of talked about here. The next one would be biopunk. This is basically cyberpunk, but it's dominated by biotechnology. This actually so cyberpunk was like late 80s, and then biopunk quickly followed in the early 90s. And it's seen as building on the biotechnology instead of information technology. The storyline will follow individuals who are changed via genetic manipulation rather than mechanical manipulation. So there's that. And then steampunk, which has taken off significantly in just cultural wise in these last, I think last 5-10 years. Steampunk is a huge thing, not necessarily in RPGs, though you do have Dishonored, for example, would be considered a steampunk game. And this is a world in which it's set in an alternate history Victorian era that basically combines the anachronistic technology with cyberpunk's bleak film noir worldview. So you have the dystopian worldview, but you have like a throwback to the gears and cogs. You'll see a lot of those. That's steampunk. Nanopunk, which is kind of where I was mentioning with Aeon Flux. Nanopunk is something that is very similar to biopunk, but instead of the use of biotechnology, It describes a world in which the use of biotechnology is limited or prohibited, and only nanites and nanotechnology is actually in wild use. So, where in Biopunk you have biotechnology, nanotechnologies will often coexist. So, like Biopunk will be bio and nanotechnology are kind of working together. Nanopunk biotechnology has been basically banned, and right now it's honestly not a huge thing. The genre is actually more concerned with like artistic and physiological impact of nanotechnology, which in and of itself is a rather new conception. This was definitely not in the minds of the 1980s, 1990s authors. I mean, it kind of was, but not to the degree that it is now. So right now, nanopunk is more concerned with like the actual philosophical debates of nanotechnology more than the actual technology itself. So those are kind of like the four major punk subgenres. So I guess I'm gonna kind of hand it over to Green and then Beard on any. What are your thoughts, I guess, on the parallels and differences? You know, do you see, are there pretty clear ones? You know, what are your thoughts on those? Which one are you interested in most, I guess?
When I was like first introduced to the concept of steampunk and whatnot, the person who described it to me basically said it's a society trying to cope with like, it's not quite a post-apocalyptic society, but it's one that is like super struggling with all sorts of different things, and it's kind of on the downslide of all the different things and rebuilding. And the differences between all the punks mainly lies in its utilization of technology, what it's using. So like you were talking about the nanotech is going to be what is used for nanopunk versus cybertech, which is using cybernetics, versus steampunk, which is very turn of the century using steam engine type technology. Yes, it's like way different than turn of the century type stuff, but at the same time, it's that level of technology utilized in that world, in that kind of semi-futuristic, semi-alternate timeline type feel to it. Personally, I've always liked steampunk just because I think it's fascinating to see people alter using the technology of like the turn of the century, but at the same time create a utterly fanciful, like way more advanced than you would think would be possible with that technology type thing. I don't know. That's just kind of
like
always
you
been...
see with steampunk, you're really quick to jump in there. With steampunk, you also see a lot of like airships.
Yes.
Dirigibles. Dirigibles is just a fun word to say. So you'll see a lot of that too. To kind of explain, we were kind of talking about video games. So like steampunk would be, you know, Dishonored. Your nanopunk, I really hesitate to even say anything, but I think it would be more of like a Deus Ex kind of thing, if anything. I mean, it, right? I mean, like
maybe the early ones,
right? Well, yeah, no,
so
not
like the ones that like Human Revolution. Divided. No way.
Those are cybers.
No
those are cybernetics.
Yeah.
Because that was the whole point of Human. What was it? Divided. Like that was the whole thing, was cybers versus humans. But yeah, the early ones, which is where you kind of saw Adam get like a lot of focus on subcutaneous enhancements and stuff like that, like his armor skin and stuff like that. And I mean, like I said, like I there's not a lot out there in regards to nanopunk that I'm currently aware of. It's not a genre that I've paid a lot of attention to be fair. But
it's not a very well-known genre either.
Right. It's kind of a new genre. Not to say that I'm not interested in it. I just haven't had a lot of copious free time to pay attention to it. So those are Steampunk's Dishonored. Nanopunk is kind of a hard one. Biopunk is really easy. Bioshock. Bioshock is a biopunk game. Because the whole thing of the way that, especially the first one, the way that you gain the abilities that you gain is through intravenous injection of different chemicals. That is biopunk in and of itself.
Interestingly enough, BioShock Infinite, right? That was kind of a mixture of the biopunk and steampunk.
Steampunk, right? Yeah, and you'll see, and that's kind of the other thing that Taylor was getting at too. You often see a very interesting blend. Really, honestly, the only ones that don't seem to really blend well are bio and nanopunk. And that's because nanopunk focuses on the suppression of technology, or the suppression of biotechnology, and the like proliferation of nanotechnology, whereas biopunk kind of sees everything working together. Steampunk sees everything working together with the overlying theme of the steam revolution and steam engines. And then cyberpunk's more of like the ethereal internet and stuff like that. Mirror's Edge is also a cyberpunk-esque game. There's a lot of cyberpunk games. So, but anyways, Beard, what would you?
Cyberpunk has always been a portion of my life, like, period. But I think we kind of know that right now with me, between like Blade Runner and a few others just kind of growing up. But for me in particular as well, I played Hideo Kojima's Snatcher at a young age. And that is another one that is basically based off of the ideas of like what Blade Runner was all about. Just taking it to the nth degree and mixing in Terminator along with it. Which in some cases you can even say that Terminator is a kind of a post-apocalyptic cyberpunk, I guess. And even then it kind of like dabbles in some other functions besides. But no, personally, like, Cyberpunk has been like bread and butter for me, and at least for like my I've always unfortunately had a very cynical view of the world. I could see us getting to that point eventually. I could see us getting to the point with like how it was with Mass Effect. I could see us getting to that point with like how it was with Dead Space. And all of them could really be in some way, like, even if you stretch it, Dead Space is also a very biopunk kind of game. There is a lot of looking into the genome, looking into how DNA recombinates, etc. Recombinant DNA. It's dead DNA, dead cells that are coming back to life and reforming into something completely new. But that is something that I think has always interested me about, I guess, more, especially in sci-fi, like the punk series. But Cyberpunk, hands down, whenever I'm feeling down, I kind of go back towards Cyberpunk to begin with, just to kind of look at it and go, yeah, it could be a lot worse. Let's get back to life.
Wow.
I'm so glad that I was going to say that, because like, I'm like, hey, if you're feeling down, at least you didn't ask for this.
Well done.
The other thing, though, which is, I think, interesting, is that a lot of the cyberpunks and the steampunks, they are very fashion forward. Like, it is an era where people, they're having such a rough time, because it is kind of like a dystopian future, or a dystopian world. And how do they cope? They are stylish. Like,
well, that's, I mean, from a hierarchy of needs, right? I mean, that makes sense, because it's one of the only things they can control.
Right.
And that also plays, I was going to say, it also plays into the punk genre-esque, that stylistic, subversive theme. Sorry, Beard, what were you going to say?
That's okay. I was just going to say that, like, a lot of really, I guess a lot of the punks, but at least a lot of the cyberpunks especially, don't seem like they pull a lot of punches. They definitely like to cover some topics that you kind of get curious about, like very adult-oriented themed topics that we will never discuss on the show, most likely, that are just, you start to think about the implications of like what that kind of technology can do for some of the seedier terrible parts of like how humanity is, and you're just like, oh god, this is no, thank you. But I just feel like as a glimpse into humanity and how dark we can get, I think that's the entire point of like what the cyberpunk genre has kind of showcased for us. And it's not saying that like every single one of them is awful that way, but so many of them do gear themselves that way, because I cannot see a world where we get more infused with technology than we already are, where it doesn't get worse.
Right, and I think that
apparently
that also,
I am not alone in that.
Well, and I think
idea.
that ties into the whole dystopian thing too, that the predominantly kind of comes into, because, and we're gonna I can dovetail this into Cyberpunk 2077 pretty easily. But Green, did you have something real quick?
I was just gonna say, it's like we kind of are slowly moving into that anyway.
Okay,
actual having cybernetics, because my grandpa has a cybernetic type heart. He has a heart that is not anything but mechanical. So I guess it's not really cybernetic. It would be more steampunkish in some ways. But anyway.
Well, I think it was about a month or so ago I had mentioned on the show there was a TED Talk that I had listened to about cybernetic limbs, and how they have pretty much in the past, I want to say past year and a half, they've revolutionized how they program it to pick up the neurological signs of the individual wearing them. And so now it has gotten to a point where, and I'll see if I can dig up the link and put it in show notes, because it's a very interesting TED Talk. The guy who is doing the talk is actually talking about a rock climber who fell, which, you know, it's a terrible thing. But he fell from a very, very bad place and had to actually have, I believe, both his legs. I want to say it was both his legs amputated. Like, I mean, it was very bad. And as part of the project that they were working on, they actually reattached the limbs, or not reattached, they attached cybernetic limbs, and they have now the technology that the climber actually can feel the sensation through the limbs. So it's gotten to the point now with technology where they've actually developed a way that the individual can actually feel the cybernetic limbs. And the guy in question was actually able to not only go back to rock climbing, he actually climbed back over the spot that he had fallen from and successfully climbed up all the way with a double prosthetics. So, like, I mean, like, it's gotten to the point now in today's world, in reality, we have now proven the capacity to artificially attach a cybernetic limb in which the individual in question is capable of feeling the sensation. Ironically, I found a terrible appendage attachment to your cell phone today that the internet has decided needing to be killed by it needs to be killed with fire.
And no, just no.
Twitter.
It's a single finger. It's just a single finger. How is that helpful? That's just not.
The best part is watching it drag the phone behind it. Oh man.
Oh my god.
So
it was so upsetting.
I work in the cell phone industry. Let me tell you, that's a whole lot of no.
Yeah.
that's the general attitude of the internet, was like, nope. I was like, oh man, it was so great. But anyways.
Nope, and why? Why is this a thing?
Kill it with fire. Kill it with fire.
Because as many people will tell you in consumerism, why not?
Oh my god.
So anyways,
terrifying.
Oh man. Anyways, to kind of dovetail this back into Cyberpunk, the actual game series, kind of a high level summary of Cyberpunk as a series is Cyberpunk 2077. It's a single player RPG developed by CD Projekt Red, which most people will recognize that name as being from the creators of Witcher.
Witcher 3, right? Or just Witcher?
Actually, the whole
all
series.
of them.
Really?
Yeah. That was
I thought they just did 3.
No, Witcher 2, and Witcher 3. They were all 3 of them.
They're highly noted for 3 because critically it was the most successful of them all. However,
And
Witchers 1 and 2 did very well, but it
2 is
wasn't until the third.
amazing.
Yeah, the third one, though, was where they really started to finally develop a lot of gameplay elements that made a lot of sense and weren't quite as wonky. Because that was always one of the biggest complaints, like gameplay-wise,
Yeah,
it was tough to stomach.
2's glitches were the best. 3 was also
yes.
3 was also they made a lot of headlines with 3 because they were one of the first, like, arguably, is Project Red, is they considered a AAA? Are they considered AAA now?
They have been, actually.
Okay. So but they were one
yeah.
of the first, like, major name developers who publicly came out and said, our game is not ready. We're waiting 6 months. And we will come back to you in 4 months and tell you if we're going to wait again, because we are not going to deliver a incomplete project. And, like, they legitimately came out and said that without any prompting from reviewers or anything like that. That was entirely on them, and they imposed on themselves basically we are not proud of this title, or we're not proud of where it is right now, and we don't feel that it is worthy of your, blah, blah, blah. And they went on to say, like, and it was really funny because they originally came out saying, we will refund, anyone who's pre-ordered, blah, blah, blah. And sales actually skyrocketed because people were so happy with a developer who was doing that. They
pulled a very Hideo Kojima-esque mindset behind it and basically said, we'll release it when it's ready.
Right. Which huge. It was huge for the time.
And especially after, I think it was the same exact time that it happened where Kojima was fired, and everybody was like, so there aren't developers that are doing this to everybody. That's pretty cool.
And it was also
little did everybody know that these were the guys that did The Witcher, and this was pretty common for them to do.
Right. And it was also on the tail end of the whole Assassin's Creed issue with...
God.
Where they were just constantly bringing out games that weren't ready, etc.
Well, no, like
Watch Dogs
was it...
and everything besides.
Watch Dogs, but no, the Assassin's Creed, was it Unity? That it was just like... It was... And then it was Assassin's Creed Unity, and then Batman Arkham City, and then this happened, and they were like, everyone was like, oh, thank God someone, the developer, whatever. So anyway,
actually talk.
Yeah, well, the developer basically came out and owned it. Like that was the big thing that they did. So anyways, this is a project that they just recently, not recently, but have acquired in the last few years. And it's going to be an adaptation of a 1988 tabletop RPG called Cyberpunk 2020. Excuse me. Cyberpunk 2020 was actually, to kind of explain this a little bit, we've been hinting at it, but Cyberpunk 2020 was a role-playing game that was heavily inspired by novels of Philip K. Dick and William Gibson, in particular 1982's Blade Runner, the film. Another inspiration was the novel Hardwire by Walter John Williams, and actually Walter John Williams helped playtest the original iteration of Cyberpunk. I think it was 2013 at that time. Hardwire was in turn written as homage to, I believe it's Roger Zelazny's Damnation Alley. So it's like this kind of staggered. This person inspired this person, was inspired by this person, who was inspired by this, and all that. Cyberpunk 2020 takes place in the year 2020, and the game's default setting is the fictional Night City. At the time, it's a city of 5 million people on the west coast of the United States that's located somewhere between Los Angeles and San Francisco. And it's basically described as being near San Jose, but the map actually puts it closer to, I believe, Monterey. And then later supplements in the game have actually contained information about the rest of the U.S. and the world, which we mentioned at the top of the show. Whereas in Cyberpunk 2077, it focuses on Night City. The actual tabletop RPG takes place. It's almost global, and to be honest, at this point. So the overall summary of the tabletop is it goes on to say, following a vast socioeconomic collapse and a period of martial law, the United States government has had to rely on several megacorporations to survive. And this basically has given those megacorporations a variable carte blanche to operate as they will. So it has transferred the political power from the government to these corporations. And so that's where we kind of see 2077 kind of get introduced. what is going on here is that it is going to be set 57 years later, still in Night City. So we're still in that dystopian location of Night City, California. And this, in this iteration of the title, has at its outset a more limited number of districts than the older version. There are some shared with the traditional layout of Night City that we saw previously in the tabletop, but there at the moment, I believe there are only 6 regions, and we'll get into those when I dive into Night City a little bit deeper. Players are going to assume the role of V, who is a mercenary that is introduced by the developers as a, quote, cyberpunk taking their first steps into becoming an urban legend in a world of cyber-enhanced street warriors, tech-savvy netrunners, and corporate life hackers, end quote. The other big thing that this is going to kind of deviate from CD Projekt Red's history is that this is going to be a first-person perspective. So through that first-person perspective, players are going to witness Night City, the American megacity in the free state of California that's being controlled by corporations and unassailed by both the laws of the country and the state. So conflict from rampant gang wars and its ruling entities contending for dominance have etched their own legacy over the decades. In the city, robotics are responsible for everyday aspects like waste collection, maintenance, and public transportation. Homelessness abounds, but does not preclude the poor from modifying themselves with technology, which has brought people to addiction and violence. If they become a threat, the armed force psycho squads deal with them. Because of the constant threat of physical harm, all citizens are allowed to own and openly carry firearms in public. So that's a very high-level summary of it. Before I start jumping into... So I'm going to kind of say what we're going to walk way through, and then I want to open it up to Green and Beard to make sure I don't miss anything. So we kind of looked at the high-level summary. I want to look at a bit of... Let me make sure I have this. So that was kind of the history of the title there. I'm going to talk about the general setting, which I have included Night City and basically technology. So I'm going to run through some technology pieces. The major questions from the chat, which we did already answer, so we'll skip that piece. I have political environment, which is this is going to be a big one for Night City because this explains a lot of the history with Night City and all the megacorps. I'm not going to necessarily probably get into detail with the megacorps that we do know exist already in game because we have seen some of them, but we'll touch on some of the big ones. And then I do kind of want to talk about the character V. We know very little about it, and I actually want to talk why we know very little about it, because that is actually one of the biggest selling points for Cyberpunk 2077 is what we know and why we only know so much about V. So before I jump into Night City and the history of that, Green, Beard, did I forget anything as far as a general high-level summary that you guys can think of?
I mean, easy way to say it, the government has kind of failed us, and everybody's adapting in their own way, mainly by adding cybernetics. Difference between the one that we're doing right now, or like the video game versus the tabletop game. And when you were taking cybernetics in the video game, you would have the cyberpsychosis that would happen after so many cybernetics that were added to your character, which is what led to the cyber, or this, is it cyber police or whatever? What were they called?
Psycho squads.
Psycho squads. They were actually meant to go and take out people who had gone to that cyberpsychosis. There we go. They were the ones that were in charge of getting rid of them because you cray, and we don't want to deal with you anymore.
And you're enhanced. You're an enhanced individual who's insane. That never goes over well. That's never a good combination.
But beyond that, I think we have a pretty decent rundown to start things off as far as like where V is compared to what we have so far.
Awesome. All right. So first off, like we said at the top of the show, it's going to be, there's going to be political deviations here. The important thing to remember about Cyberpunk, the series Cyberpunk, is that it is going to overlay with our own reality, and then it's going to deviate around the time right now, about 2010 2015-ish is where it really strongly kind of goes off on a right angle from where our own world has gone off. Reason being is historically this was written in 1988. So they kind of were projecting forward 25 years. They saw a different way of things going. You know, there's the Cold War. There's all this other stuff going on that they were kind of, you know, they're watching and seeing, oh, hey, we're going downhill. Thankfully, we did not go downhill in the way that they describe here. So taking a closer look at Night City, we find a diverse place with people from all walks of life, backgrounds, and culture. It's described as a seething mass of what had been once the foundations of a utopia. And Night City was founded by a tech giant and visionary who was known as Richard Knight. And the city was originally planned to be known as Coronado City, and was envisioned as the perfect city that would stand as a monument to progress and the power of technology to improve people's lives. His optimistic vision of the future basically is now a haven for violence and corruption. While technically still on American soil, the city does fall completely outside of state and national legal jurisdictions. Here, the corporate...
Yeah, that's because a lot of the states had seceded at that point. Texas, California, a few other states as well.
And this is where we'll see a lot of the emphasis. I'm curious how Cyberpunk 2077 is going to incorporate that information, because technically it's still canon. Because that is all taking place in 2013 and 2020, the tabletop versions. And so Night City was kind of the first among many who kind of stepped away from the government control. And actually, you'll see with the corporate wars that we're going to talk about here when we get to the political aspect, the corporate wars actually furthered that wedge, because a lot of the corporate wars were basically these mega corporations backing political parties in seeking independence from the governments of the countries within which they were. And so, like, basically you would have two mega corporations who wanted the resources of a particular area. They would ally with a particular sect of rebellion, and then they would pit the political parties against each other while they were basically standing in the wings waiting to take over. It was a very common thing. And there's right now there's been 4 corporate wars, and the 4th one is actually confirmed as still existing. This was the corporate war that took place as part of the Firestorm expansion-esque of the tabletop RPG, which had been retconned. We know that the 4th corporate war has still in effect. We don't know at this time how much of the 4th corporate war is still canon. So we're still waiting to hear basically what aspects of that war are going to be confirmed as being in game. So basically corporations are in charge at this point.
Oh, that seems like a common theme that we've hit multiple times on the show in the last year.
So over the years, basically,
about anything at all, like Clovis what?
Yeah,
Clovis what?
So over the years, the Night City has been fractured by various corporate conflicts and gang wars, and one of the most notorious of these was actually called the Mob Wars. And the Mob Wars was a campaign that was started in 2009, in which Arasaka, which is one of the mega corporations, Arasaka paramilitaries took to the streets and basically wiped out the mobs that had taken control of the city following the death of Richard Knight, and that had happened in 1998. So the city had been built in 98, 2000-esque, if I remember correctly. Knight had been killed in 98, and that was when they also changed the name from Coronado to Night City in memory of Richard. At that time, though, there was no leadership, so the mobs took over. And basically, it was just chaos, really. And the corporations basically backed out. And then in about 2009, the Mob Wars started. And the Mob Wars was basically Arasaka, who was one of the original founders of Night City, basically had enough. And they were like, we're done. We want our investment back. So starting in 2009, the Mob Wars began. And basically anyone who was caught in between were just left just kind of getting undercover. So this is where you also see a lot of the homelessness start gathering, because those caught between the mobs and the corporations were basically left trying to make ends meet and just survive. You had riots and violence that was just like raging through the streets. In 2011, the mob wars were over, and the mob was actually fully ousted from the local government and replaced by the corporations. By 2020, the city had become relatively peaceful due to continuous police presence, which is the Psycho Squad that Green had been talking about a little bit a moment ago. Though dangers do still remain, and the aftershocks of the mob wars are still felt from time to time. You'll see this often with what's called the Metal Wars or the Rust Wars, with the gangs kind of muscling in on each other. For most, though, despite the pervasive violence and poverty, leaving Night City is just not an option. Because yet, even though it's quoted as being the worst place to live in America, corporations are still selling the unattainable dream of making it big, and the masses in general are just buying it hook, line, and sinker. Night City is basically consumerism run rampant. That's the best way to look at it, because no matter where you look, you have a product that's being pitched to you, an aspiration, a dream that's being kind of dangled in front of you. And that doesn't mean if you're on the metro, if you're, the quote here is, whether you're riding the metro, brushing your teeth, or pissing in an alleyway, the glitter, vibrant color, and allure of it all sucks you in. So basically advertisement saturation is just constant. And everyone is in their own right a wanderer. No one really kind of has a home. They're just kind of these just self-wandering individuals. And Night City presents this undying hope for fame and success, where failure is actually the ultimate fear. So self-preservation and self-promotion are the driving forces behind societal advancement, not money. In Night City, in order to be someone, you have to be more than yourself. To become immortal, you have to become a brand, an ideal, which makes me really think of Batman. But it's a bad version of that. And actually an example of this consumerism, when I was saying consumerism has run rampant, you see this and we actually saw this in the trailer for Cyberpunk 2077. There's a team called the Trauma Team. This is actually a corporation, and I'm going to get to that when I get to the corporations too. But these are basically paramedics that are expertly trained in combat, and they will go to any length to deliver their clients from harm. And if you're wealthy enough, you can actually purchase what's called a Trauma Team medical plan. And you basically, when you purchase that, you get a chip and a card, or a card and a biochip implant. And what this chip does is that if it recognizes a medical problem for the client, it immediately informs a trauma team, who then rush to the scene to stabilize and extract the patient. And they quote it, "Rain or shine, war zone or picnic." In 2020, this is where Trauma Team was kind of introduced. They had a guarantee of like within 6 minutes. In 2077, they're quoted as having a guarantee of within 3 minutes. So they've actually gotten better at their job, which is both scary and kind of commendable. And there's actually a breakdown on the Trauma Team, and it's like the crazy specs of what a average paramedic team from Trauma Team is equipped with is just insane. Like they will have the paramedics. So you usually have 2 paramedics, both with pistols for self-defense. And then what will often happen is they will be in a vehicle, and in the vehicle they'll have 2 pilots, one primary, one backup. Behind those will be 2 what are called security professionals, both armed with saws, which are basically, if you don't know what a saw is, it's a massive machine gun. And their jobs are basically to protect the pilots, and if necessary, to quote, clear a path for the paramedics to get to their client. And they don't really discriminate when they're clearing a path. Their job is to get to the client, and that's it. So yeah, the Trauma Team it's like admirable, but also terrifying in its own way, because if you get stuck in the wrong place with the Trauma Team coming through, you're going to get cut. You're going to get sawed. The other thing that you see a lot in Night City is going to be the skyline, and that's where basically you see a lot of these what's called mega buildings, and they're a very, very prominent feature in the Night City skyline in 2077. And basically what these do, they function like cities. They are basically cities within the city. and they're described as self-contained architectural behemoths that offer housing, food, firearms, medicine, and training. And you also have a quote that says, "Don't mistake them for a futuristic realization of a utopian society. These structures share much of the same grit, grime, and danger that are encountered out in the streets." So even within a good example of this, even within these buildings, if you have seen the reboot of Judge Dredd, which I'm not going to get into the analysis of the entire movie, but I'm just going to use it as an example here. The building at the end of the movie that Dredd has to go through, that's a mega building. That's basically a cyberpunk mega building. It's like its own individual fiefdom inside the city that could, like, it's just, that's the best example that I can think of.
It's also a little bit more akin to like what they were trying to do with RoboCop.
Yes,
yeah, because that was what, I mean, granted, you've been talking about like corporations being in charge, and of course this whole time I'm just thinking about OCP the entire time. It's basically like RoboCop's desire for, I think it was Delta City. That's what they were trying to like remap what Detroit should have been. But never
worked
happened.
Worked out so well for them.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that entire venture worked out for a few billion in losses, I think.
So, and to kind of wrap up the description of Night City, I'm going to detail out the regions that we do know of in 2077. So again, some of these districts are shared with what's kind of called the traditional layout of Night City that was seen in Cyberpunk 2020. The starting location for the game is a district called Watson, and this is an immigrant district. You see a lot of Asian-influenced rundown buildings that were basically once owned by corporations prior to their moving to a different region called City Center. City Center is the commercial district, and this is going to be the home of many of the mega corporations that you see in 2077. Then outside of that, we have Westbrook, which is basically also known as Japantown, and is home to the wealthy elite of the city. Haywood, which is a suburban area, and the note here about Haywood is that it is a upper middle class area. However, it is seeing a growing presence of gangs, and it's largely Latino. So again, kind of going back into that multicultural modge podge of things. Then we have the region known as Pacifica, which is basically, it's just slums. It's gang run. There's turf wars going on constantly. They're just the stereotypical slums of a futuristic city. And then finally we have the region called Santo Domingo, and that's the industrial district, which is where basically, that's basically the example that they've given, or the description they've given is it's an industrial district. Excuse me. Which actually brings me to one of the biggest aspects and interest points of 2077, the technology. Okay, so technology. The first thing to realize about technology in 2077 and the world of 2077 is that it's omnipresent. It's everywhere. It's used to automate industry. It's used with bombarding masses with all the advertisement that we were talking about. We even see it replace human flesh and bone with circuitry and steel with cybernetic enhancements. And basically this list just keeps going. And you'll see while cheap electronic devices and services are available to even some of the poorest members of society, most actually can't afford to buy the newest toys or replace broken equipment. So as a result, from a young age, many learn to improvise and work with discarded scrap to make repairs, to build their own diversions, and actually to craft their own weapons. For many Night City residents, the crushing poverty and homelessness are significant and likely inescapable problems. And so, as we mentioned before, despite this, most are still entranced by all the glitz of showbiz and the luxurious lifestyles of the privileged elite. Breakthroughs in neurotechnology have paved the way for people to share recordings of their own personal memories and emotions via tech that is known as brain dance, or BD. This is very big in 2077. Some BD productions put actors on stage situations to create, quote, false memories and to give viewers the feeling that they're living in an action film. Other BDs are simple recordings of a day in the life of the world's biggest and brightest stars. The ability to become a celeb and experience a life full of luxury gives many a chance to escape their own miserable reality. As a result, and this kind of goes back to what Green was kind of mentioning earlier, as a result, brain dance addiction has become an ever-growing problem for the city's poor. Also, as with all forms of entertainment media, illicit brain dance recordings, which are known as XBDs, can be found easily in the seedy underbelly of Night City's black market. The example here that makes me think of is from Destiny, is actually in the Mara Senna, when we hear about Mara selling the videos and kind of becoming a celebrity in her own right of that experience of being in the void. That's kind of a BD. That's kind of that selling of an experience for others to share in that experience without actually having to put themselves in danger. You also see that in the new iteration of Total Recall. They do a really good job of explaining that as oh god, what's the company's name?
I can't remember either.
Oh my god, it was right there and I just completely forgot.
Yeah.
We'll remember it for cheap or something like that.
Yeah.
So, and it's again very common type of theme, trope, whatever you want to call it in science fiction. Star Trek had the holodeck. You know, this is kind of the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Two well-known examples of all this glitz are actually seen in the trailer. We see Lizzie Wizzy, who is who's described as the controversial front woman for the band Lizzie Wizzy and the Meta Dwarves, which, interestingly enough, she is described as the only human member. So I'm kind of curious about where that one's going. And then Samurai, which is described as the legendary rock band for whom music was a way to rebel and fight the system. And so Samurai is very prominent in the trailer, where you see V, the male version of V, walking around with a samurai jacket. So the jacket that the main character that's walking around in that trailer, with the really cool LED warmer things in the collar, that big skull on the back, that's the Samurai logo. So Samurai is just like, again, kind of going back into the punk theme-esque of this franchise. That's where they kind of see that, you know, the pushing the boundaries and everything of the rock band. So that's kind of technology in general. One of the huge aspects of technology in particular in Cyberpunk's world is the net. You see this a little bit. This is where Cyberpunk kind of stands apart from the other punks. So you don't really have, you have a concept of a internet type thing in like Shadowrun and all these other things, but Cyberpunk really kind of focuses and double downs on this concept. And so the net is the name that's given to the vast telecommunications network of the Cyberpunk world. It's analogous to the real world internet, but much more extensive, and includes things like appliance and even actually their cybernetic limbs. The net is made up of hard lines, radio links, cell networks, microwave transmitters, and anything else that can actually transmit information from one computer to another. So it is basically the Internet of Things on steroids.
Can't you, is it like the Matrix where you can die in it type?
Yeah. And so what you'll be, that is actually that's actually an icon. But in order to get to that point, we have to understand how to interact with your icon. And so while it is possible to access and use the net as we do today with devices that are referred to as vid boards, which is basically your Green, you just made one, the 4-screen monitors, the keyboard, the physical keyboards, the mouse, and all that. That's called a vid board. Those are actual, like in cybernetics or in Cyberpunk's world, those are primitive. True professionals in Cyberpunk experience the net in 3 dimensions, and they do that by using a complex cybernetic interface that's called a cyber modem. These devices, which are often referred to by netrunners as cyberdecks, provide an experience that is much more immersive and intuitive than the traditional keyboard-computer interface. What that means is that this allows the netrunners to basically react far faster than would be ever possible with a keyboard. So a real-world example is like the age-old argument between DualShock controller and mouse and keyboard, right? your mouse and keyboard are arguably going to increase your enhance your reaction time much significantly more so than a DualShock controller. And so that's kind of the similar difference here between a vid board and a cyber deck. While in the net, everything, I'm going to reemphasize that, everything is rendered into icons. And so what an icon is it's basically a 3D avatar that you control in order to interact with other stuff, which includes people, programs, devices, anything in the net. Icons can be as simple as a flat 2D monochrome shape, from that all the way up to a complete photorealistic human form. Most of the net environment is actually very similar to the movie Tron or The Matrix, but the quality of the rendering depends on the available bandwidth and memory. So it's actually possible to render a completely realistic environment, which, Green, like you said, is very similar to The Matrix. However, those more complex icons require significantly more memory. For this reason, the bulk of the net uses lower quality icons, where originally there were actually options to include one or to experience one of 3 unique interfaces, which were introduced in the Cyberpunk 2013. And those 3 were what's called Megacity, which is basically a 1930s film noir theme. They had a Dungeon and Dragons theme, which just sounds amazing. And then
also a little odd.
Yeah, just oh my gosh, but and then the third one was a Tron theme. It's actually called out as the Tron theme. In 2020, the UIs were eventually consolidated into one standard, and that was the Tron-like theme. So the Tron theme that you see, or you will be seeing in 2077, that is the standard UI. And what that means is that everyone who interacts with the net will see the base UI as that. The other important thing about icons is what this means is that everybody is able to be a hacker. Because what you're basically doing when you're hacking something is actually interacting with a real thing. The example that you see a lot of is in programs. There will be structures or icons called data fortresses, and they're literal walls. There are programs that are basically worms that will delve into the wall or make a door. And so the average Joe can actually go out and, if they have the money, buy a program and then unleash that program on the physical wall of the icon and literally hack their way into that particular structure. And by hacking their way into that structure through that icon, they are literally also doing what today you have to know coding to do. You can do just not knowing any coding, really. Which kind of comes to the next big thing, which is artificial intelligence. So AI does exist in Cyberpunk. And basically the net is the natural environment of these entities. And just in general, just like with most science fiction, there are many types of AI within the Cyberpunk series. Some are deliberately created by the corporations or the governments, and some are accident. And there are arguably even some that are emergent properties of the net itself. So far within the series, and this is the whole series, not just the video game. So far, the types of AIs that we've seen are called the first and the most basic is what's called a dedicated heuristic controller, or DHC. DHC is basically the base level of AI. These are designed to perform specific functions, and basically their focus does not stray from that function. Imagine a media player or a printer. Like, they do that, and that's what they do. That's all that matters. The next step up is called symbolic analysis AIs, and these are also called SAD AIs, SADs. These are AIs that are deliberately designed to emulate human behavior. And what you'll see a lot of SADs, you'll see these as artificial assistants in some form or fashion, secretaries, gatekeepers, what have you. That then brings us to the next level, which is human AIs. Now, these are AIs that were actually originally human. They were actual humans that have been digitized. and now they only exist on the computers in the net. So the problem
I've never
here,
heard that before.
yeah, the problem here is, and this is also something that you probably never heard before, is that these might not necessarily have been voluntarily digitized.
I've never heard that before.
Surprise! The human AIs might not have been 100% on board with having their consciousness digitized. So yeah,
the Nick Cage meme. You
yeah.
don't say.
What? Yeah, and so like these will be whereas the SADs are designed to emulate human behavior, human AIs will actually they are formerly human. So they don't have to emulate, they actually will have human behavior. These are often kind of the workhorses of the AI forces. That brings us to what's called Transcendental Sentience AIs, or TSAIs. And basically, this is and so these next two AIs are really kind of the arguable ones, because these are the ones that exist in myth. These AIs are what are called an emergent property of the net, and basically what that is that they are argued to be a natural consequence of how the net functions, and so they are basically something that was naturally created by the net. They are not controlled by anything. They are not. They were not created on accident. They are just there. And the Transcendental Sentience AIs, or the TSAIs, there's arguably one TSAI primarily for each quote-unquote region within the net. That gets into a large rabbit hole that I'm not going to dive into, because that would be like 5 hours in and of itself explaining. But yeah, so TSAIs are arguable on their existence. That then takes us to what's known as a Critical Pathway Plateau AI, or CPP. These are very similar to the TS AIs, but on a much smaller scale. These AIs are not debatable, because these are the AIs. CPPs are AIs that were basically, they came into existence by accident. What happened was a corporation or a government or whatever was programming an AI, probably an SAD AI, and something happened. A bug was introduced, a glitch happened in the code, and instead of deleting the AI, what basically happened is they accidentally created something more than an SAD, but not quite a human, and that's what a CPP is. So it's these really kind of interesting little accidents that are still around. So CPPs are similar to TS, but they were created, whereas TS was not created. So that's the net. Very, 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 very high level review of the net. One of the things that is also very prominent in Cyberpunk is the cyberware. And so cyberware are basically the cybernetic prosthetics that you see in pretty much every aspect of the trailer that we've seen so far, or any Cyberpunk genre content out there will have these. So the cybernetic prosthetics were originally developed for practical and medical purposes. In 2077, cyberware has become so commonplace that you'll see it as more of a matter of lifestyle choice. So you have commonplace, like this is basically the tattoos and jewelries of the world. You have multitude of reasons for installing, including simple tech upgrades, combat enhancements, and actually there are even fashion statements, which you saw in the trailer. There is a scene where a woman is doing makeup and it pans out and she has no lower face because her entire lower jaw is actually hanging on the vanity to her left because she hasn't gotten around to putting the makeup on it just yet. I mean, it's just insanely detailed and insanely pervasive as far as what can be cybernetically enhanced. And so really what happens is in Night City, the possession of what's called trendy cyberware has become an integral and defining part of that culture. Uniqueness is identified as just being another form of currency. And this goes back to what we were talking about. To make it big, you need to look the part. Style is everything. An example that we saw in the trailer, again, kind of going back there, is something called real skin technology. And this is what is synthetic skin that is designed specifically to cover cybernetic implants to make it look like you don't have a cybernetic implant. So it's kind of like this you're showing off by, well, I was going to say it's more like showing off by hiding. And so that's very thing. You'll see one of the corporations that we're going to talk about actually plays off the obsession with the trendy cyberware. That's their entire industry, really. It's called chrome. It's chrome plated cybernetic arms. So there's an event, or there's a fad going on right now in cyberpunk.
Jax.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's chrome plated fad is what it's called. Denilar Technologies is entirely their specialty is what's called chrome plated cybernetic arms for women. And basically that is the majority of their income is entirely supported by what's known as the chrome plated fad. Within the trailer, within the trailer, you actually see this within the portrayal of Lizzie Wizzy, who is the woman who kind of gets out of a limo on a red carpet. There's like all these cameras flashing, blah, 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 and she's basically chrome. She's 100%, looks like she's 100% chrome. That's what a chrome plated cybernetic would be. So that kind of comes to the other side of this coin. So, we're talking about robotics. Well, there's not just cyberware. There's actually drones and robotics. And this kind of this spans from live feed camera drones to sparring bots to, massive warehouse machinery. So you're talking about anything from the stereotypical little spy bug to basically the Wallies, the giant Wallies that are in Wall-E that are dumping all the trash into space. Yeah, those guys exist or could exist here. So those are like the huge automated trash collectors, robotic street sweepers. If you're lucky enough to have a window, you can see these throughout the day. And so basically, whether top of the line or pieced together from scraps, robotics really just serve a huge role in both economic and everyday life. So in the economic sector and everyday life, robotics is a huge component of this. Most public transportation systems are actually completely handled by automated vehicles. Trains and buses they're basically practically entities in and of themselves, and they are able to communicate with each other and learn in order to improve efficiency. Really cool call out here is that this is actually another TED talk that I was just listening to was talking about if we can completely automate vehicular movement, you can actually have a world in which arguably there is no traffic jams, because the way that they are presenting that is, if you look at what happens in a human body with your blood, there are infinitely more blood cells than there are vehicles on the road in today's world. And there is not really ever a traffic jam that doesn't involve a external source, which would be a clot, which, if you get cut and it scabs over, that's a clot. And so they're arguing that the way that they communicate with each other could be based off that communication device as well. And that's kind of what you see here with the trains and buses being their own entities. They are operating on a network that is completely independent of any other network, so they're able to communicate with each other and more efficiently move around the city with each other. And then on the other side of that coin, you have the military. So an example of the military is the Flathead, which is also the MTOD-12. This is actually seen in both the trailer, and then CD Projekt Red released a 48-hour video of real gameplay. And the mission that is primarily focused on in that gameplay is the quote, reacquisition of an MTOD-12 from a gang who's known as the Maelstrom Gang, for a fixer, Dexter Deshawn, who will kind of get into the fixer's aspects here in a little bit with the political environment. But basically, the fixer hires V and a team to reacquire the MTOD, the Flathead. which is basically a Flathead is an experimental military grade unit that is designed for surveillance and reconnaissance missions, and it comes specially equipped with dynamic camouflage armor and motor impulses that rival the human nervous system. So in the trailer, you see this where they're in a aquarium bar. The robot drone that is sitting on the table between the group of people in that scene, that's the MTOD. In the game, like I said, in the game, you actually see the MTOD in action. Dexter apparently kind of drives it around. I haven't had a chance to sit down and watch the video for the gameplay. I've heard it's amazing. But you actually see the MTOD kind of demoed by Dexter in that game. Or no, he's demoed by one of the Maelstrom gangs before you take it back to Dexter. So yeah, that kind of is like a really rough summary of the tech that you see. I'm going to take a breath for just a second.
Good idea.
What do you guys have any questions on the tech aspect before I dive into the political aspect?
The tech aspect is the easiest way to say it is that whatever you can dream up, they're going to do it.
Yep. Fingers on cell phones.
God, that is such a stupid thing. I don't understand why. Like, it's not even useful. I digress. But with the cybertech, they can go full cyborg, like you were saying, which is kind of interesting, and it brings up a lot of like the philosophical questions of, are they still human at that point when they're going full cybernetics, or have they lost that? What's going on?
And that is, I don't know if the game's going to get into that debate. I know in the RPG there is some of that. Obviously, that's a very common debate in Cyberpunk genre. Blade Runner. Geez, the new Blade Runner. Yeah, beard.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God, yes.
Are replicants people? Yeah, like that's a huge debate in Blade Runner. So it's a very common debate whenever you have AI, and in general cybernetics. At what point do you cease to be human? At what point are you more machine than man? Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure if they're going to get into that. I can see them getting into that in the game, but I don't know what capacity they'll go.
In frank portions, I think it's going to come down to what path you take as well.
Then that's fair as well.
Just the way that they're kind of explaining this, it feels like it can be something that is very Deus Ex or is very Blade Runner.
Or what's the other? Detroit, right? Is Detroit the one that Detroit you play as
become human?
Becoming human, right?
Yeah. There's several ways that they can kind of dip and go with it. I can see many different paths that we can all take, of course, when all is said and done. But yeah, especially for how they're opening up this game, especially, I think that there are certain paths and certain things that you are just not going to see. Because you will, at least if it's going to be anything like what they're talking it up to be, with all the paths that you could take, it's going to be different.
Oh yeah, and like when I get to I'm going to try to get to V. Hopefully I can get to it before we run out of time, because one of the coolest features that they have with character creation is actually dealing exactly with that. Mm-hmm. However, let's finish building out the world real quick before we dive into V. So the next big thing, the next big thing is the political environment. And basically, I'm just going to read. I kind of wrote up a little bit here that kind of dives into quotes from CD Projekt Red's website. So what I have right now is this kind of summary. I said, the world is broken. Following an economic collapse during the early 21st century, the United States was forced to rely on megacorporations, megacorps, to survive. These corporations deal in a wide range of areas: weapons, robotics, cybernetics, pharmaceuticals, communications, and biotechnology, to name a few. And many of them operate above the law. In Night City especially, megacorps manage every aspect of life, from the top floors of their skyscraping fortresses, their power eclipsing that of any world government. Down below, the streets are rung by drug-pushing gangs, tech hustlers, and illegal brain dance slingers. The in-between is where decadence, sex, and pop culture mix with violent crime, extreme poverty, and the unattainable promise of the American dream. Night City has seen its share of gang warfare over the years. The gangs that fill the city vary by structure, hierarchies, and backgrounds. However, all organized crime in this town is driven primarily by violence. Self-actualization through violence is a philosophy followed by many in the society, driven by an ever-present need to prove oneself. At the bottom, physical brutality settles most disputes. At the top, corporations do whatever is necessary to maintain both hard and soft power. Here, fear is king. An important location to observe and interact, if so desired, can be found in Below Deck, an underwater-themed club opened in a former aquarium. Gun laws are lax in the most violent and dangerous metropolis of the corporate-ruled country. Anyone can own a gun, and thanks to frequent riots and the daily threat of violence, just about everyone does. Open carry of firearms is both commonplace, and many even wear bulletproof clothing as they go about their lives, just in case. No one bats an eye at a pistol here or a rifle there. To stay alive, you need to look out for yourself, even if that sometimes means turning a blind eye to the constant violence happening all around. So yeah, it basically, the explanation of why your characters can have such powerful equipment equipped at all times is because everyone else does. Like, everyone else has it, so you need to have it just to protect yourself. And to call out real quick, Below Deck is the underwater themed club. That is from the trailer. That's where you see the MTOD-12. That's where Dexter kind of has his shop, or actually a lot of fixers are based out of Below Deck. So kind of gets us into the mega corporations. And
they own the government at this point.
Oh yeah, they own all governments at this point, to be fair, especially in 2077. Night City basically is described as a global center for mega corporation operations, and is actually home to a lot of the regional branches of corporate giants such as Arasaka and Militech, both of which were large founders in the construction of, at the time, Coronado City, which then became Night City. So Arasaka specializes in protective services and distribution of Japanese-made products throughout North America. Centered, they're kind of, their central point again is Night City. And over the years, it's kind of developed a dark reputation as a corporation that is to be feared, and which covers its tracks with a very, very heavy use of what's a profession called cyber assassins, which is basically an army of lawyers as well as an alleged connection to the Yakuza. Cyber assassins and an army of lawyers. Sorry, didn't mean to imply that.
I was like, that was an interesting
Sorry, no. Yeah, cyber assassins, an army of lawyers, and the Yakuza, arguably. They obviously, quote-unquote, can't be proven. Militech, on the other hand, is an arms dealer that's based out of the eastern United States. And what Militech does is they work closely with police and military forces and have basically substantially contributed to civilian security systems. So Militech is where Arasaka is kind of the underbelly, the seedy aspect. Militech is a powerhouse manufacturer of high-grade military technology, and that ranges from simple firearms to heavily armored combat vehicles. So Militech's more of the law, open in the transparent nature of, like, they are legal. Arasaka is kind of the more illegal aspect. And in addition to that, Night City is also home to many shops, restaurants, and decor that draw inspiration from Japanese, Chinese, Filipino, and Indian culture, among others. Some of the examples that we see in the trailer include Kirosho Optics, Cabana Foods, Fudiseki Electronics, and Masala Studios. And apparently, I don't know what, I'm not really sure on this one, but apparently there is some Maneki Neko figurines and Tengu imagery that are also seen in the trailers. I didn't necessarily catch those, but that was kind of the call out. I saw a call out on one of the Cyberpunk wiki for that, so I was like, I'll include that in there. some of the confirmed megacorps that we know of from the cyberpunk world that are going to be in 2077. The first one is, I'm going to just run through these alphabetically. These are not in order by importance. These are in order of alphabetics. Arasaka, which really is corporate security, manufacturing, and banking, which is where they kind of get their power. Is this they wield significant financial power, arguably more financial power than any other single corporation, and they're known to often use subversive tactics such as blackmail, extortion, and bribery to influence events and the world around them. That brings us to Biotechnica. This particular corporation focuses on genetic engineering as well as microbiological and biochemical research. We don't know anything about Biotechnica at this point. There's nothing. We've seen we saw a logo for Biotechnica in the trailer and in the gameplay, but we didn't see anything other than that. That brings us to Dinalar Technologies, which we kind of mentioned with the chrome-plated fad. Their primary industry is cybernetic technology implants, cyberware, and they specialize. What we do know about Dinalar is that they specialize in the chrome-plated cybernetic arms for women, which we kind of talked about again with the Lizzie Wizzy, as well as before. Then we have Militech, which we mentioned just a minute ago. Militech specializes in arms manufacturing, military vehicle production, as well as mercenary contracting. And they're described as the largest weapons manufacturer in the world and have an extensive catalog that is used by hundreds of nations and mercenary divisions. And its mercenary divisions partake in operations ranging from assassination to corporate security, all the way up to full-scale military operations. Keep that in mind because that's going to be important when we get to the corporate wars. That brings us to Orbital Air. Now, Orbital Air is an interesting corporation because they specialize in orbital facilities, which is literally space. So they specialize with maintenance of commercial orbital facilities as well as cargo and passenger transport to Earth orbit. We don't know much about Orbital Air at this point. However, we do know that they were involved in what was called the First Corporate War. So they are important. It is debatable at this point whether or not Orbital Air is still prominent, given some of the later corporate wars. But we'll get into that in just a second. Raven Microcybernetics is a corporation. Obviously, cybernetics is their main focus. We don't know. Again, we don't know a lot about them. We know that we have seen their logo. That's about it at this point. Then we have the Trauma Team International. We kind of talked about them when we were talking about the consumerism. They specialize in ambulance and paramedical services. And basically, again, these guys are the ones that specialize in rapid response medical services, and they stand as actually one of the most powerful corporations of the cyber age because of the premium paramedical franchise. Because they offer to protect you, they're actually very powerful because all it takes is them saying, nah, we're not going to do that, and they can get people to do what they want. And finally, the last corporation that we do know is going to be in 2077 is Zetatech. This is a corporation that specializes in wetware, which is basically computer hardware or cybernetic ware or cyberware, and as well as literal computer hardware and software design. This was actually a newer corporation. They were involved in the First Corporate War as an ally of Orbital Air until they actually made the mistake of attacking a company or a corporation called EBM, Euro Business Machines. And EBM kind of slapped them back into place and knocked them out of the conflict. So Zetatech is in the process of rebuilding, it seems like, from a failed attack in the corporate wars. So that brings us to the corporate wars, which we've kind of mentioned on and off. There's 4 primary corporate wars that we know of. The first one actually took place, and this is where you're going to start seeing the deviation in timelines from reality very significantly. The first corporate war took place in August 2004 to February 2006. And this conflict was primarily between Euro Business Machines, EBM, and Orbital Air. And basically what this whole thing centered around was the two corporations were trying to purchase another corporation who was in the process of going out of business, and it escalated like significantly. And so the importance of this war was that this presented the example to other corporations that using wholesale military style warfare against one another was actually a viable business practice. The first corporate war was the first conflict of its kind, and it actually led to other corporations following suit and fighting massive conflicts with each other over resources and business prospects. Basically, this set the precedent. This was the first time that we saw two corporations literally physically duke it out, and the governments could do nothing to stop them. Because of the economical situation of the global political environment, these corporations controlled things even back then, or even at this point. Which leads us to the second corporate war, which took place in April 2008 and lasted until August 2010. And this war was between two corporations called one Sov Oil, and then the other was Petrochem. And then this one, the big thing out of this war that kind of came about was that both sides just broke national and international laws throughout the conflict. They used armies of Pacific Rim nations against each other. They went as far as to depose governments and just install new ones that were sympathetic to them. Savoy particularly ignored the demands of nation states and just did as it pleased. Though it was after the conclusion of the corporate war, it was later forced to pay reparations to some of those nations. The other thing is that the entire geographic region of the Pacific Rim is pretty much gone at this point because of this corporate war, because of just the flaunting of power that they were doing. It's like the geography still exists, but it's so polluted that really it's not even worth being around. Which then leads us to the third corporate war. So there was a bit of a respite between the second and the third. The third corporate war was a really pretty short one. It was between February and November of 2016. It was a large-scale conflict, so there were multiple corporations involved in this one. And really, the reason that this one was so short, as well as not being significantly destructive physically, is that this war was nearly completely fought on the net. It was basically cyber attacks against each other. You see a bit of you don't see a bit of this war, but you see a bit of these tactics in the trailer. There's a scene where there's a board meeting and there's a guy with a head jack that just starts sparking and then he slumps over. That's basically a digital war. Finally, this is the one that we don't really know where it's going to stand, and this is the fourth corporate war. This took place sometime between 2022 and 2024, and really what started as a shadow war between Militech and Arasaka, which was it started as a political conflict between OTEC and Sino. It started in early 2022. Because what happened was there was a political conflict between OTEC and Sino, which were two world governments at the time, or still at the time, and Militech and Arasaka both kind of allied with either side. So there was OTEC and Sino who were in arguments, and then on either side also Militech and Arasaka were competing as well. So they were kind of pushing the political parties at each other. What happened was OTEC and Sino had actually managed to come to a resolution, even with the egging on that the corporations were giving them. And so what was a shadow war between the two corporations actually escalated in what's called a hot war in June of 2022, and then came to a head in 2024. And this is where we kind of were talking about this before show. This is where the events of Firestorm and version 3.0, the tabletop versions, they've been officially retconned, because basically the conclusion of this conflict, of this corporate war, was a nuke was being dropped on Night City. And so there was a very large problem with, hey, how are we going to take place 57 years afterwards if you nuke the city? So the fourth war is to my understanding, the Fourth War is still on the canonical timeline. We just don't know which parts of the conflict between Militech and Arasaka are going to remain fully in place within the storyline that 2077 is following. And that's the corporate wars at a very high level.
Mm-hmm. Oh gosh, I can't remember her name, and she was really good. There are a few lore YouTubers that go specifically into Cyberpunk, going kind of like in depth like you have, and one of them basically said the U.S. was reduced to a third world country thanks to the megacorps.
Yeah, that's where we mentioned, I can't remember if we were recording, but we mentioned the gypsies.
Mm-hmm.
There is an equivalent of the Trail of Tears with gypsies, and that happens in 2015. I can't remember. I don't have that written down, but there's a in the tabletop game. There's a very broader sense of what's going on in the global scene. 2077, the video game is solely focused on Night City. So far, we might be seeing other expansions later on, but right now Night City is the primary focus. In the tabletop RPG, since it's been going on for 30 years, it has kind of encompassed and explained what's going on in the world at large. So America is not the only not the only country that has been having problems with megacorporations. I mean, Arasaka itself, it was founded in Japan in the early 80s. I think it was 1983. I want to say off the top of my head. Or maybe that was when the major leader of Arasaka was born. Anyways, it was funded in like the 80s-esque. And so like they have since developed into a major corporation, a mega corporation that, is, like we've kind of been saying, is one of the biggest ones. But because of all the conflicts that are going on, basically what happens is you will also see in the cyberpunk world, there is no dollar. There is it's a euro, what is it called? Euro bill, I think it's like EB. I think it's EB is the acronym.
Right. It's like the dollar completely collapses, and then we get and then
the euro completely collapsed too. It's like all like in order to save it, basically what happened was in order to save the economy, the global economy, not just countries' economies, the global economy, all the governments had to so imagine the banking crisis that happened in 2008 in reality. Flip it. That's what happened. So the governments all went bankrupt and actually had to turn to the corporations to help buy them out. So the corporations actually pretty much bought rights to different areas of the planet, and then paid the governments to allow those governments to continue operating, and in exchange of autonomy in those regions, which is where you get Night City. Night City. Richard Knight was an individual who basically got tired of playing the game of business and used his wealth to purchase the area because Los Angeles at that time was pretty much destroyed. It was underwater for the most part, if I remember correctly. He bought the area. What's that?
Global warming.
I can't remember if it was global warming or if it was a failed attempt from a Cold War attack. I can't remember exactly what happened with it, but it was like Los Angeles was gone. Like it was pretty much gone.
The second edition of the tabletop adjusted some of their
when they moved from 2013 to 2020. Yeah.
For the Red War or the Red War,
that's right.
The Cold War.
The Cold War. Yeah, that's right. So like there are events that like the Berlin Wall and all this stuff. Those still happen, but they happen with like strongly different undertones. And so where you have like all these where you had governments leading the corporations in our world, in Cyberpunk's world, you have the corporations leading the government. And so like Richard Knight was a kind of an oddity because when he purchased the land for Coronado City, he actually was trying to do good. He was trying not to, not necessarily, I mean, he wasn't necessarily not trying to profit, but he wasn't like just trying to profit. He was trying to build a utopia. Right. And the importance with Arasaka and Militech, and then, what's the other one? Oh God, it was, I just completely blanked. Petrochem. Those three megacorps are major sponsors of Night City, which is why Arasaka and Militech are they're constantly butting heads. Arasaka has a significant pull in Night City because I believe that they were one of the significant contributors, more so than the other two. But Militech basically funded all the corporate, or all the police force, whereas Arasaka funded the financial districts and all that. And then Petrochem is, because the Second Corporate War, they beat Savoil, which was the Soviet equivalent of Petrochem. Because of their defeat of Savoil, they got control of pretty much all the energy resources, or the significant portion of the energy resources on the planet. And so they were, that was their aspect. All this compiled, Richard Knight gets killed in 98. I can't remember if he was, I want to say he was assassinated. I can't remember who organized the assassination. But in order to continue building Coronado, they rename it Night City in memory of him. And then that leads into the mob kind of muscling their way in, because at that time in the whole scheme of things, the corporations weren't as overt in strong arming their way around things just yet. Because remember, in 98, the corporate wars hadn't happened yet. So the mob war takes place in 2009, and that's why if you look at the corporate wars, the corporations that are fighting the corporate wars, Arasaka and Militech don't get involved until later in 2022, because they're in the process of eradicating the mob from Night City. So like EBM and Orbital Air, that whole thing happened in 2004, 2006. The mob wars didn't start until 2009. And so then that's why large argument is why the mob wars were even events, was because basically Arasaka and Militech were both watching EBM, Orbital Air. You had Savoil and Petrochem both kind of like literally duking it out. And then, none of these corporations really got in trouble. And so Arasaka was like, we can do that, and send in paramilitaries, and just completely eradicated the mob for the most part through Night City. And then they brought in, then Militech came back in and all these other things. And so that's where the political kind of like this like jostling for position within the political spheres of Cyberpunk is really kind of fascinating, because you can see the playoff of each other as they're playing like this 4-dimensional chess, where everyone's watching the other people because they're waiting for it. It reminds me a lot of the corporations from Dark Matter, because everyone's making alliances and betraying and all this stuff and doing like these soft things, and then all of a sudden this one thing will explode, and everyone kind of like stops, watches it, waits to see what happens, and then basically that sets the precedent for, and then it escalates. And that's where the corporate wars, that's why the corporate wars are so important in the Cyberpunk universe, is because they legitimized the fact that corporations could send in literal military like they weren't just financially manipulating things anymore. They were literally physically manipulating things. You see, and that's where the Fourth Corporate War, you see this culmination of it, because Arasaka and Militech, again, have always been, again, butting heads. And then this political conflict between OTEC and Sino starts. And if I remember correctly, it was over a resource battle in South America, I believe was where it was. And so Arasaka's like, oh, we want it. And then Militech basically sees it and counters them. And I can't remember if one of them, I can't remember which one, but basically the one tries to grab it, and then the other one's like, no, you can't have it, and is involved just to prevent the other. And so what these two are doing is they're pushing these two political governments, or these governments, into a fight with each other. And that comes to a head, and then all of a sudden, basically the equivalent of the UN basically manages to actually talk the two governments down so it doesn't escalate. And so now all of a sudden the shadow war between these two corporations is revealed. And instead of backing off, Arasaka and Militech go, all right, gloves are off. And they just go at it with each other. And that's where in 2024, that's where the Firestorm storyline ends. And actually, if I'm remembering correctly, that's also where you get a device called I want to say it's the Soul Killer cybernetic bug, which actually will rip a person's, I think it like force digitizes them and then locks them in a digital cell or something.
Dear Lord.
Yeah, it's a really effed up thing, but Arasaka has developed this device. And so actually one of the last missions in the Firestorm, I keep on calling them expansions, and I don't really know what a better word for it is, but the one of the final stories is basically your team as the mercenaries are going up against the Arasaka, trying to destroy this device, and in result, the nuke gets dropped on Night City, and that's all she wrote. And then that's when in 2008, I think, whenever it was announced that they were going to come out with Cyberpunk Red, that was when they also announced that Firestorm and the majority of version 3.0 had been retconned. So you see a distinct break in the timeline, but that's also when they confirmed that the Fourth Corporate War was still legit and still in canonical timeline, but they haven't specified which aspects. So we know that a conflict between Militech and Arasaka has happened. And obviously Night City is still around, so it didn't get nuked, and that's really all we know at this time. Yes. Sorry, that was a random tangent that kind of dovetailed out of control for regards to the corporate wars. Real quick, I wanted to touch, do I have time? I think I have 5 minutes. I think I can run through this real quick.
I challenge you.
Okay, I can do it. All right, so you got playable classes, PCs. In Cyber 2077, you're going to have I'm going to talk really fast. You're going to have a significantly limited player class options as compared to the tabletop RPGs, which really should note
There's 9 different ones you can play in the tabletop, or at least there used to be 9.
Yes, there are 9. In 2077, there are 3. Now, what they are allowing is, even though you only have 3 major classes, you can jump between them as far as skills go. So the primary classes that you're the primary focuses, I guess you would call them, that you're going to have are Netrunner, Techie, and Solo. And I'm going to come back to those. So Netrunner. Netrunners are basically computer hackers. Imagine the movie Hackers, but basically with cyberdecks that are implanted in their bodies. And what they do is they use this brain-computer interface. They roam the net, and they basically look for systems to hack and information to sell to fixers, which are fixers are going to be major NPC contractors, basically. The major ability or specialty for a Netrunner is what's called interface, or basically the ability to use a device called the menu. The menu is basically a group of applications or apps that allow a Netrunner to run a series of interface programs within the net that allow them to do more at the same time. So it basically, it's divide and conquer. The Netrunner is going to be best suited for players who prefer a stealthy approach rather than a physical or a more aggressive approach. Skills under this primary tree will grant access to mundane objects, doors, for example, as well as eventually more intricate systems, i.e. you can actually hack security, you can hack encryption, and eventually, supposedly, even other characters' brains. So that's going to be a really cool thing to watch. Techies are going to be your mechanics. They are basically the illegal scrappers. They are going to range from technicians to cybernetic specialists, so basically mechanics, to all the way off the record doctors. These are going to be usually portrayed as underground techies who do off the record work. They specialize in jury rigging, scrounging, and even some will have the med tech ability. This is going to be a player that is geared to be an engineer. Their skills are going to focus on building and using a variety of weapons, gear, and instruments to upgrade and augment their playstyle. Some examples here are going to be the drones and turrets. And that brings us to Solo. Solo are basically tanks. They are the hired hitmen, bodyguards, and mercenaries of the cyberpunk world. Due to the professionalism and constant training, they have an ability called combat sense, which basically gives them the capability to perceive danger, notice traps, and have an almost, quote, unearthly ability to avoid harm. Solo are mercenary characters. Their skills are honed and focused in combat, especially close quarter. So again, tank. That's going to be your tank. So you're going to have an option of stealth. You're going to have an option of basically construction or healer, I guess. Yeah, healer. And then tank. Done.
Mm-hmm. Good job. I don't know if you made it in the 5
minutes.
minutes.
I don't know if I made it in 5 minutes. Okay.
You did real well.
So, and one final thing. I did want to talk about V real quick. V is your character. That is going to be your character. Yes, it has been confirmed that
play as her.
Or him. This is a really cool thing for CD Projekt Red, actually, because they're taking a big step out of what I would define as their comfort zone. First off, you're going to be first person. Second off, you are able to customize the ever-living bleepity bleep out of this character. They have confirmed that you are able to tell a backstory. You are able to program in a backstory, which entails how you came to Night City, what your plans are for your character, as well as your dreams and hopes and aspirations, all which are
setting up your actual player character.
Yes,
the tabletop version.
Right, and the cool thing about this is those selections are going to flavor your influence or flavor your interactions with NPCs in the game. So when Beard was talking about like actual paths not being seen by people depending on their choices, that is legit. Like that is gonna happen. Like you are gonna. So not only are you able to like do like the Bethesda route of like completely custom. And by the way, guys, oh my god, it's beautiful. Like the customization options
it's a
are
pretty game.
Gorgeous. Like it's just gorgeous. Now part of that. One of the biggest complaints is that it's a first person, so you don't get to see your character a lot except for cutscenes. But the trade-off is you get some awesome abilities as far as customization. But also as far as customizations, and I want to say it's background, how you got to Night City, and your dreams and aspirations, I think are the three things. I think there might be one more that I'm forgetting. But the important thing is that when you choose those, and you don't have to choose them, these are optional. So, but if you choose them, those will influence your interactions with NPCs during gameplay, as well as potentially opening up, different paths and stuff like that. So it's going to be really cool watching all the playthroughs of this, because from a story perspective, it's going to matter what you do. Like, and for me, that makes me really excited. Not only is it a solo RPG, but it's like you see these solo RPGs kind of growing as we see that in the gaming community. It's like over the years, we've seen them come more and more like tabletops. This is kind of, I'm really hopeful that this is going to be kind of another step forward in regards to that. And I mean, honestly, CD Projekt Red really hasn't disappointed. I mean, I'm trying
Witcher was so good.
Yeah, I haven't played Witcher 3 yet, just because time. But I'll be honest, I'm not a fan of the third person view. But the storyline is freaking amazing. Like I love the concept of Witcher. And again, CD Projekt Red, really, I haven't seen them do anything bad. Like all their stuff is they don't put out content unless they're very sure of it. So I'm really hopeful that they're up there with Bethesda, in my opinion. Which, if you know me, that's a very high compliment.
High praise.
So and again, it's a solo RPG, which is like my wheelhouse. So I'm watching Cyberpunk 2077 very closely, because it's going to be very, very dangerous for me. I'm going to definitely be watching the storyline. But yeah, so that, I mean, and that guys, that's Cyberpunk 2077. I think I made it below the mark for 2 hours. I'm hoping that I didn't bore people. We'll be
close. We will be close.
Oh man.
3 minutes to spare. 2.5 minutes to spare.
So pre-editing, I did 3 minutes. So I'm sure
Uh-huh.
I'm sure I can cut a little bit of 30 seconds out.
Maybe.
Oh, all right. So shout outs.
Shout
Beard,
okay.
why don't one of you go first? I'm going to go get a drink of water.
Yeah, you had a marathon there with this one. Shout out for me goes to, um, you know, I don't even know right now. I did not prepare my shout outs like I should have. Beard, you go real quick, and I will think. I will think
Yeah,
quickly and hard.
I'm no help. I don't have any this week.
Yeah, I mean, Blue's gonna be real sad because I just don't even know. Saint 14's getting ready to do another charity event. That's something that is coming up.
And the dames.
And the dames. The dames are doing their breast cancer awareness like they do every year.
They're doing it. They're doing it different though this year.
Yes.
Correct. I think I saw a message. Sorry, dames. I promise I will respond to you as soon as I possibly can. I did see the message, but they're doing it different. They're structuring it differently, and we will. Let me get the information. I will get it sent over to our Discord, as well as links to all that stuff. I promise I will get that. It's been insanely busy this week, so.
Yep. Beard and I didn't really have much for shoutouts. I was just announcing that Saint 14 and Dames have their projects that they're doing, and we're bad this week at the shoutouts.
And this week of Blue Crew 86, I mean Focus Fire Chat.
Yeah, that's what it feels like sometimes.
No, no, go for it.
It's just one of those things like this genre. I know more about the books in the genre than I do about the game necessarily. And my very first tabletop RPG was GURPS, which I played cybernetic scion, like a psionic, because why not? I broke the game.
Well, yeah,
I broke the game so
sounds
quick.
Like you would. Why would you? That's like two opposite worlds being combined there.
Well, we were laughing this morning about like the thing that Z posted on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
I was that person. I would blow up the bridge easily before ever getting to the encounter and just making the encounter just go null. It's like, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was trying to remember the Cyberpunk Red is going to be using the fusion system, which is actually a system I'm not remembering off the top of my head. Oh, because it was created by the guy. Okay, that makes sense. I am not used to this one, so I'm interested. I'm going to have to go. It's in the open gaming license. Yes.
Nice. Yeah. By the way, you can get a lot of the books, I believe, pretty easily. They're easy access.
They're all OGLs. Most of the tabletop RPGs now are OGL, which is open gaming license, which is huge for those who don't have a lot of money to drop on actual hardback. So you'll have like a lot of online supplements. If you are in Discord, for example, and have a bot that is doing stuff, like we have in our D&D Discord group, we have a bot that does a lot of the dice rolling and stuff for some of the stuff that we do. That is entirely capable, or that's entirely possible because of OGL. OGL is basically something that came out that was like, hey, this is the pieces of information that are not, you can't sell them, but they're not technically proprietary, so we're going to allow you to publish them without copyright infringement. Basically, it's a really simple oversimplification of the OGL. But yeah, so I guess fusion system is what Cyberpunk Red is going to be using, and that's all we know about it. Other than it's going to coincide with the release of Cyberpunk 2077. That's it. But yeah, real big shout out. I mean, shout out really honestly to CD Projekt Red. They have continued to impress me over the past few years with their stuff. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with Cyberpunk 2077, just simply because it's a storyline that's very interesting, and just it's just really interesting. It's been around since really, arguably since the beginning of the whole concept of cyberpunk, and so I'm always glad to see like these older titles getting revitalized. Even though some of them will take missteps. We don't talk about D&D 4.0. But you know, like
it wasn't that bad.
It was, anyways.
Anyway,
5th edition was much better. I'm just gonna say that. But like, I mean, like getting that revitalization, simply because, you know, table RPGs just in general, it just, I don't know. I will always have a soft place for RPGs. And then Philip K. Dick is a huge, like, I'm a huge fan of his works in particular. So anything that's an RPG and deals with like Cyberpunk, Philip K. Dick, you know, Blade Runner, all these type of things, I'm going to kind of be hard pressed not to be interested in those. But yeah, I think that's everything. Next topic, or this topic is appropriate. This month's topic is appropriate. I don't know. I can't remember if I said it or not.
Bloodborne.
Bloodborne. So happy Halloween, everybody. Let's talk some Bloodborne. The only thing I think that would be more appropriate is Dark Souls, but we already did that, so we're not going to do that again. But yes, Bloodborne. Guys, jump into Discord and chat about that, because I hear that it's very complex. I haven't dared to look at it, but I've heard like horror stories of trying to piece together Now, at this point in the game, they've got it mostly pieced together, but like apparently it was very challenging. So I'm interested. I'm interested to start.
Final Fantasy crazy, but it's pretty crazy.
Well, no, I think the problem was the medium in which they had to go through to unlock it, because it's just I've heard like very terrifying stories about how they had to find out about different aspects. So I'm really interested to dive into it to get it. So, but yeah, let's run through an outro real quick. We will obviously stay for a little bit of an after show, and see you guys next week. With that, we'll begin to wrap the chat up. Thank you again to those over on Twitch for coming to spend your evening with us. If you'd like to join us for the live streaming of the episodes, please be sure to give us a follow over on twitch.tv/focusfirechat. Links to our episode archives can be found at www.focusfirechat.com. Please be sure to email us at focusfirechat@gmail.com with any comments or questions for our team concerning the podcast, and let us know how we're doing by giving us some feedback and a rating over on iTunes as well. Also, be sure to check out all of our amazing partner podcasts within the Guardian Radio Network over on theguardiansofdestiny.com. So until next time, focus your fire, and may your light shine bright.
I will get the sleeper before I go to bed. I'm so stinking close. All I have to do is the Will of a Thousands, and I will have Sleeper Sim, I believe, again. Or, I guess, yeah, again. I had it in D1. Guys? Hey,
Sorry.
Jay!
Hi.
Jay's in Clan Hydra. He also streams incredibly late. I never get to see your stream, dude. He starts streaming at like 12 a.m. I'm like, oh my god. How? How can you do that, dude? I heard you had quite the Crucible run earlier tonight. Because you were playing with Lux and Cole and Heichi, right? Beard, how's your grind going?
What kind of grind?
Well, okay. I was thinking Destiny grind because you were on Destiny, at least that I could tell.
Not tonight.
No?
No. Yeah, I'm gonna finish up one thing here and I'm gonna head to bed. I'm done.
Yeah. Been a rough week for a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm gonna say work had me on for a grand total of 35 hours this week, which they should not have had me on for 35 hours this week.
I think I told one of you that we lost a person.
Yeah.
Her last day was yesterday, and I did not realize it, which kind of sucked. But I knew
Immediate promotion.
Well, I'm in the same department because we all work under the operations umbrella, but I deal specifically with the distribution of 401ks after like retirement and stuff like that. She deals with doing loans while you're still working. And so we were under two different umbrellas, but my quote unquote immediate upgrade or whatever promotion came in the form of, hey, now you have to do all the payrolls because the guy who took her spot is the payrolls guy. And so you're doing both all the distributions and the payrolls. So it's like, all right, fine. It's not like I don't have enough to do at work, so. But beyond that, yeah, I bet your throat is dead. Jesus. This is why when you take notes, your crazy amount of notes that you end up taking scares the crap out of me. Because I know I'm going to end up either, if I'm like contributing to the same amount like you do, it's just like I'm going to kill myself. I actually stopped recording ghost stories earlier so I wouldn't have to worry about like losing my voice tonight.
Nice.
And then, yeah, I got a good chunk in. Where did I end up? I finished the Segura card, which was the last one I did.
Compliments.
Uh-huh. So that's like, what, 5 in? 4 in?
Are you going alphabetically?
I am going in the order that they have it listed on Ishtar.
2, 4, that's 6.
It's cool. So I'm good.
You got the super sad one next.
Yeah, I know. I kind of stopped because I saw that one was coming up.
That one's really sad.
Like the first two are also really sad. Like the whole book.
Pressure wasn't sad. Are you talking about Chosen's Choice?
Chosen's Choice and
Ghost Hunter?
Ghost Hunter were both
Ghost
pretty.
Ghost Hunter is just creepy as fuck. But
well, that's just because Cyril's
like so weird. I still don't really understand if Strain is like supportive. Like I know Strain's not super supportive because she abandoned him, but right. I'm like I can't not get a read on the emotion of the ending of that card. Like I'm like,
right?
Are you? Because like her message to Ghost, I'm like, are you encouraging him? Like, are you encouraging them to seek him out, or are you warning them not to seek him out? Like, I can't get a feel for what she's saying about that one.
Yeah. The other one that I really liked was Tyra's card.
It's
like,
what was that one? That was
Ghost, or it's the ghost is like the name Ghost. What is it called?
Don't call me Ghost.
Don't call me Ghost. That's right. God, that was freaking funny.
It's hilarious because Tyra just absolutely refuses to partake in it. She's just like, well, what's your name then? Don't call me Ghost.
Well, what's your name, Ghost? Don't call me Ghost. Like, oh my god. The one time that Tyra gets like sassy and it's in a freaking card.
I love it. I love it. Well, it's not the first time they've had that argument either, if I remember correctly.
Right, but
No,
it's
not.
like...
Because wasn't that the
That was the
web lore? I was about to say, wasn't that the web lore argument that they had?
Yep. Alright, guys. I'm gonna head out then. I will talk to you guys later.
Nighty-o.
Night.
I really dislike this strike. I even dislike it way more because I only have 2 guns that I like because I have to have the stupid Achilles gun on. At least it's not hard at this light level.
Doop, doop, doop.
Uh-oh.
What was that play? God damn
What am
it, I
getting
can't
pinged
remember.
for?
I didn't do it.
No, you didn't. Damn! So apparently Lux, Cole, Heichi, and I can't see who else is on this without blowing it up. Lux, Cole, and Heichi played up against a 6 stack of Dads of Destiny and wrecked them 100 to 47.
Which clan?
It's just DOD.
Well, yeah, that's the call sign, but
I don't know. I just have a screenshot of the.
Is it on Twitter?
No, I can send it to you.
Yeah,
or I'm just gonna copy it.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm
just curious. I'm curious who it was. I don't recognize any of those guys.
Cole with 34 kills and 4.8 KD.
What was that in? Just
Crucible? Quick. Yeah, it looks like quick play.
That's rough.
Yeah. I mean, running with Lux, you get games like that a lot. Cole's really freaking good too, so it's like, Jesus Christ, I can't keep up with these people, but I like to think I could keep up, but I'm getting there. Slowly but surely.
Are they on? They're on PlayStation, right?
Yeah. They are indeed. What's nice too is that Cole is a Sherpa. Like she does a lot of Sherpa
That's DoD Battleborn.
DoD Battleborn? How I don't know how you know that.
I have, yeah. That's
you still have DoD?
Yeah, Sentinel Prime, all their groups. Spidey 30. Trying to see if I know anyone else in there.
She said that was the second game? Wait.
Or at least one of them's in. I'm assuming all of them are in there. Let me see.
Battleborn?
That's one of them. I'm pulling up the others right now. Yeah, it looks like that was a Battleborn run.
How funny. God, they just totally wrecked them. Alright. Zol, let's get this over with. Or Giant Wormy who pretends to be Zol.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of has some of the same things that Riven has. He has the little weird spiny spots.
But he's not a meatball.
I know. Do you think it's weird that the meatballs are like servitors?
I honestly don't even know what they talk about. I'm not sure I understand what... Because that's one of the bosses, right? That came...
Yeah.
In the game that I don't play.
But you talk about a lot.
No, I play Destiny. I don't play Gambit. I fucking hate Gambit.
Oh.
Gambit can just drop.
Well, yeah,
off.
there's like...
Yeah, those are all Battleborn members.
Okay. The meatball, it's a boss not only at the end of the story missions, but also in a heroic mission.
Oh, so it's just the same. It's the same as the voice of Riven?
I don't know if they're called the same. I don't think they are.
Because I thought it was a Taken variant or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I just did that mission earlier, and it was Taken. Like it was tethered to blights, which was kind of cool. Like those little, I can't even think of what they're called. They're like, I don't know. I think this is a form of Ahamkara because I'm looking at the inside of his mouth, and he has the same eyes that Riven has, but they're inside of his face.
Well,
like
and
maybe he's a young version of it.
To be fair, Ahamkaras are shapeshifters, so
right. It's just weird. I stunned him. I didn't know you could stun Zol.
Oh yeah, are you playing the Strike?
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if he's coiled around one of the towers. If you pop him in the face a couple times with the Valkyrie, he gets pissy, but you can push him back. I think it's his face. It's not early. Yeah, I think when you hit him in his mouth, or when he's like trying to do one of the attacks.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. That's amazing. I love that. I'm gonna have
What's that?
I'm gonna have to find this picture. It's a Dilbert comic.
Oh gosh.
Dilbert
is the original
which is like the story of my life, to be honest. Like it really is. But just sent that to you.
I will have to check in a moment.
Oh, it's so true.
Ow, jerk. Second game as against them, they volunteered for a second ass whooping. Damn, I guess they had played them twice and kicked their butt both times. That's funny.
Whoa, what?
Hmm?
Oh, nothing. I just... What?
What the crap?
Shit.
I've never seen him get that close. Jesus, Zul.
Just really, really wants to be your friend.
Yeah, he does. I don't want to cuddle up against a worm. That's just weird. Don't say anything.
Finger on phone.
God damn it.
The best part of that entire thing was, so I found that this morning. Like I don't even remember what I was looking at, but it was on Twitter, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be bad. Like this is gonna be worth following because I can see the
Kex. Kex posted it first, and I'm like, God.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't get it from Kex. I saw it from some random news site. And I was like, oh, this is going to be hilarious to follow. And I just kept like checking regularly throughout the day. And it was just like progressively the internet, like my Twitter feed was just like that is all like the tech updates. It was just progressively, you could see the information as it rolled through the community. Everyone was reacting. The best ones, the gifs of kill it with fire, kill it with fire.
That's how I felt about all of that today. It's like, what the fuck? Why?
Why? Did you watch the video?
No. Well, yes, I did, because it was like auto playing on my phone.
How far did you get into it? How far did you get into it?
When it started stroking the phone, I was like, nope, I'm done.
It gets so much worse.
I'm so done.
It gets so much worse because there's a version of the finger that actually looks like a human finger, except it doesn't look like a human finger.
Oh my god. Jesus. Okay, what's this? Oh, the Dilbert photo. Jeez.
Give me a minute while I try to think of a reason why this makes sense. I'll take all the time you need. I'm like, oh my god, that's so true.
Okay, give me Sleeper. Give me the goddamn gun. Give me the gun that's going to allow me to play Gambit without feeling like I'm going to be... Night, Z. I didn't see you. I bet you've already gone. I'm sorry.
Yeah, she said that she's, like, gotten last-minute projects being shoved at her.
I bet she does.
Shadow Warrior 2.
Oh, is that the timestamp on the Google Messenger?
The what?
Sorry, Hangouts. Is that the timestamps that you messaged? I just saw it on my phone.
No, those aren't timestamps. That's just behind the random update.
I see. My phone has decided it doesn't want to turn on all the way.
I can understand. I'm trying to find...
Ah, I see.
Oh, what was I doing?
Did it not drop? I'm gonna be pissed if it didn't drop right. Surely it did. Final calculations. Aha! Run to Anna. Running to Anna. I'm so happy to be done with this damn quest. You have no idea.
Which one is that?
Sleeper.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't have enough room. God damn it. Come here, Dem. Destiny item manager saving the day. Shut up.
It's just amazing. Like, I love when that, like, you're like, I'm deaf. Fuck.
I have 245 tokens for frickin' Mars. Dear God.
Yeah, I don't even know what mine are.
Okay. Sleeper now just needs to be upgraded, and then I will be ready to start playing with the giant laser pointer. That's going to get nerfed at the end of the month.
Okay, so that's where I got those. That's what I was looking for. Awesome. They redesigned their site. That's why I couldn't figure out what they were doing. All right.
Who did?
The studio. I was talking to someone about doing like lapel pins or something, and they're like, "Well, your stuff is so simple that we wouldn't even really do it." Because I was like, "What would it? Just kind of get an idea." And they're like, "It's so simple, we would just send it to the people that we, send the simple stuff to. And I was like, who's that? And they sent me the link, and I was like, God damn, it's a lot more expensive than I thought it was going to be. And then I was like, hang on, wait, the studio, which is where we did the coins, they do that, and they're like half. Though you have to order like twice as much. So, I mean, like in the end, I guess it's about the same, but you get 3 times as much for the same price. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look at this.
My postmaster is completely out of space. Time to go delete all the things. I'm sure I lost a bunch of items. They were all blues. It doesn't matter.
You can ignore that one too.
What was it? Was it for Anna?
Well, it just whenever you have free time. It's not. It's not like
pressing. I am having a very busy time deleting all these items and shaders from my vault. Yeah, I definitely lost a bunch of items. That sucks. Oh well.
Doop 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 doop.
So, have you seen the tractor sparrow?
The tractor sparrow.
Mm-hmm. This is a thing.
Destiny tractor sparrow.
Tractor?
Like a tractor trailer?
Yeah, it's called the warrior steed.
It's an exotic?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
It's a tractor.
Fuck is that thing?
It's a tractor.
It's like a goddamn John Deere.
I put a green shader on it. I've been driving it around. It's so fucking ridiculous. It's the best thing ever.
The Reddit post. Glad I could finally live out my dream of riding all over the solar system with a John Deere lawnmower. Somebody tweeted at me because I mentioned how I had the tractor sparrow, and he's just like, I want somebody to make a video where they're mowing the grass in the Dreaming City. I've just found the true grind to get the sparrow and the shader, mowing down my enemies in style.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Aldrin, your ass is grass, and I'm gonna mow it.
Yep. It's so good. It cracked me up. And it handles really stupidly. Like, it is the derpiest sparrow I have ever driven. It's so weird.
It's a trick sparrow? Oh, he got one of the guys got a drop. Wait, it's exotic, so it's fixed. It's a freaking trick sparrow? How the hell is that a trick sparrow? Oh my god.
It just does a lot of spins. A lot of spins. But yeah, I'm gonna screenshot what mine looks like and just.
Oh my god! Ride gloriously into adventure and through it. I'm dying.
Oh my gosh. It's great.
Oh man. All right. Hey stream, I'm gonna take off real quick. You guys have a great night. We will see you later. I don't know when, but probably next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.